Great Monday morning, everybody. Welcome inside your midday hang. We are here. It's Annie and Elsten here with you on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. All together in our Odyssey studios where we are looking at MLB Network. You guys just spent the last 30 seconds getting MLB Network on in here. Now I'm calling us on MLB Network. 3, 2, 1, start over. Welcome back, everybody. It's your midday hang. It's Annie and Elsten.
I'm going to start calling Annie the queen of eyewash.
Eyewash is my favorite baseball term, and I loathe eyewash. But I just asked Braden, hey, will you turn on MLB Network on this TV? I don't know how to work this remote on this TV here. And,
Literally for the eyewash.
It's good to make sure we're on top of everything. Maybe something's coming down the pipeline, whatever. But as soon as we turned it on, it was like 30 seconds of Dodgers.
It's just the Dodgers game.
Annie,
it's just the
what
Dodgers
did you
game.
expect was going to be on?
Wait, are they literally replaying
Yeah,
the
it's
game?
just
replaying the
Okay,
game.
It's just the game.
let's change it. Let's change it. Let's put it back on. The other thing that is so wonderful in here, which is YouTube AI scenes of being on a beach or something.
Yes, or the cat curled up
Yes.
next to the open fire, which is next to like several flammable things
Right.
inside the
Right.
floor-to-ceiling window apartment overlooking a rainy city
How
place.
are they?
Talk about
how is it
eyewash.
10 a.m. on
Monday?
So 1 p.m. on the East Coast. How are they replaying a game? How are they not having on?
There's nothing
programming?
until Friday. There's nothing until Friday.
this
They
is
got to
better.
figure it out.
Yeah,
Roundup,
but
fine.
it's the greatest World Series of all time. Shouldn't they be like hyping it up like they do for the Super Bowl?
Shouldn't it be like the countdown to show
Right.
that?
Yeah, this is their moment to be like Major League Baseball always wants to be like the NFL. Isn't this their moment? You know what? As Andy says all the time, in about 10 years, they will have a week off before the first game of the World Series so they can overhype it. That's going to be great.
MLB is getting what after the Rangers and the Diamondbacks last year, MLB is getting what MLB wanted.
Listen, it's been a long time since the Dodgers and Yankees have faced each other in the World Series.
How old are you, Craig?
I was 9.
Wow.
I was 9, and actually, it's the first World Series that I remember watching.
Yeah.
Was the 1981 World Series, the Dodgers and the Yankees.
Pepperidge
Because
Farm.
as my dad reminds me still to this day, he took me to see a Fernando Mania game.
That's cool.
In 1981, and at that
Sparked
point,
your love of baseball.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, did spark my love of baseball. And since then, baseball has wanted this matchup, and for 44 years they haven't had it. So here it is. Woohoo! It's the Dodgers and the Yankees.
It was.
It'll
it was
be a
a little
good
depressing.
series.
It was a little. Watching the Mets, I was like, "Come on, Mets! Come on, Mets!" But the Mets were not going to come on, and
No.
They were not going to come on.
it was a wrap. Grimace needs to just go back to the Hamburglar and the Cookie. I think I'm mixing shows or whatever, but whatever his friends are, and call it a day.
Who else
Grimace does have the hamburger.
The
Ronald
Isn't there a
McDonald.
cookie person too, like a Cookie Monster or a Cookie?
No, that's
Sesame Street.
Yeah.
So the Dodgers outscored New York 40-26 in the 6 games.
This whole series stunk.
It
was
very
a
good.
lame,
Yeah.
boring blowout series.
It was really never all that close between the Mets and the Dodgers, and yeah, it's annoying. I'm not gonna lie.
You're annoyed?
It's just a little annoying, but at the same time, okay, I will say, and we talked about this a little bit last week. For the casual fan, it's probably good for the sport. It's good
Yeah,
for baseball.
sure. Why
Knowing
not?
who the Dodgers are, who the Yankees are. You can kind of like get behind a superstar to superstar, Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge kind of deal. But it's a little also like, does it have to be them? Did it have to be them?
Well, we are lucky that we have not seen this every year. And it's the nature of the fluidity of baseball's playoffs with short series and with, randomness that's already so deeply attached to the sport that we haven't seen this every year. But the fear is that you'll see it more and more years going forward as these structural advantages for these teams continue to calcify. I mean, the thing about having a 25-year, $8 billion television contract is that every year you get that check, So it's like, this year you got a $280 million advantage over us, but Next year, you get it again. And the year after that, you get it again. And the year after that, you get it again.
Yeah.
And it just keeps coming, and it doesn't stop. And, of course, the Yankees have the same thing. And, of course, the Mets had the same thing. They've got a giant, they've got the wealthiest owner. They're bankrolled to the hilt. They've got all the advantages of being in New York as well. So, when this happens, it's like, hey, the IRS is taking on the FBI. Woo! Like,
yeah, and I'm not in the camp that just because you spend a lot of money, you automatically go and you're going to make it far and you're going to make it to the World Series. I mean, you can look at the 2023 Padres for proof of that, and we see it every year. It's not always a team that spends the most money. However, it does give you, like you just said, a significant advantage, and it kind of sets you like you're in the playing field most years. Being able to do that. And I don't see that that's going to change for baseball anytime soon. And why would it if you're the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Mets? Like, you're not gonna be like, yeah, sure, I'll just let go of our TV network that makes us so much money and just join this, umbrella that MLB has. It's just not going to happen. Shoot, I heard Tony Gwynn Jr. talking on Friday about a rumor, and it's just a rumor, and I don't see baseball going this way, and neither does he. But the fact that he's kind of heard about it, that he could see a world where there's a rumor going, that baseball could go back to a few, big games every night and not seeing every game on TV for every team at some point, if they can't figure out the RSNs and the money situation and all of that. I think he believes we're a ways away from that, and it is just a rumor. But you wonder, like, what conversations are being had and what kind of the situation that this is for Major League Baseball. But listen, that when you get to spend a lot of money and you get to make sure that you are filling and plugging holes, it doesn't mean you're going to be in the World Series every year. It doesn't even mean you're going to be in the playoffs every year. But it definitely means you're going to be in the playground. You're swinging on the swings.
He said, like, not every baseball game would be televised.
He said it could. He said that he's heard rumors that it could go backwards to a time when there was just the Braves on
Braves
TV.
were on TBS.
Yes, exactly. And every game of every team was not televised.
That makes no sense.
I don't think that
Especially
it would.
in
It's
this
just the
day and
cost of it.
age.
I think it's just the cost of putting on the games.
I mean, you have every single, just because I know, because I do them, every single USD sporting event is on ESPN Plus now.
Maybe that's maybe it would go on to more of an internet streaming thing.
Right.
Maybe it would go on to more of a.
Or what the NBA is doing.
I don't see
local affiliates.
Right, exactly. Yeah, like I could see where he's coming from in the sense of, like, the cost of putting on every game probably outweighs what you're getting in return. However, you would lose so much marketing and so much your sport would die a little bit if you didn't get to watch it.
It would kill off MLB.TV. That wouldn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Unless they did, like, some of those major games, like, on MLB TV or something, I don't think this is happening, and I don't think Tony even thinks it's happening. I think it's more just the fact that, like, this isn't an ideal situation for all these teams and for MLB and for everybody dealing with this TV situation.
Wouldn't that be so baseball, though? They're just going backwards. They're like, hey, you know what? Let's just air the Braves, Dodgers, and Yankees games. And the Red Sox.
Yesterday, I'm sorry to have to repeat the same point, but when we get here, I feel like I have to repeat the same point. Yesterday, you probably enjoyed the National Football League. Usually, most of the people in our listening audience probably watched at least a little bit of the National Football League yesterday. Our beloved Lions.
Had a great win,
game.
which we all picked correct.
Yes, incredible game.
1-0 on picks that matter, our show.
Absolutely. That league shares all of its media revenue equally amongst the 32 teams. And because of that, you could watch Houston take on Green Bay in a game that involves one decent-sized market, but like the third or fourth biggest in Texas, against a minuscule, essentially non-existent market. And both of these franchises are on absolutely even footing. So Houston has the ability to rise and fall based on the quality of drafting they do, the what they do in free agency. There is a minimum to spend. There's a maximum to spend. Everything is organized so that all 32 teams have a chance all the time. And the result of that is the most popular sport in the country. And baseball does everything the opposite. It does everything the opposite. It barely shares anything. Their national TV deals are a fraction of what the NFL has. The NFL puts everything in one bundle and says, you want this? You want to spend all the money to get this? Otherwise, you don't get this. Oh, we'll frack off a little part here and here and here and here. But you got to spend big to get in under the tent. Baseball, they've got a national deal. They got a couple national deals. And then you got all these little regional deals for some that lead a guy who's a lifer to say, oh, well, yeah, maybe for some teams, the cost of putting a broadcast on is not worth the squeeze. And then you've got the two teams in the World Series. A $1.5 billion Yes Network deal for the New York Yankees, an $8 billion deal for the LA Dodgers in Los Angeles. And that money doesn't get shared. That money never moves anywhere other than the individual coffers of the individual franchises. And as a result, you've got this disparity where you've got a handful of teams that can spend whatever they want. We tried to do that for a little while. What happened? Debt hammer comes crashing down on it. Hey, you're spending too much. Debt hammer. Because we don't get a $320 million check from Time Warner every single year. But the Dodgers get that. So therefore, they can spend whatever they want. Debt hammer not going to fall down on them. A smaller team tries to spend up to play with the big boys. Debt hammer is going to come. It's going to crush you. Yeah. It's an unequal system that will lead to unequal results as it perpetuates over time.
It is, and it's like it's hard because it's like that's you like like I say you got to play the cards on the table, and that is what baseball is. I mean, unless that's changed by the big guns at the top, I don't see that going away. That's how it's been forever, right? And again, it's like any team can every team has debt, and every team can decide how conservative they want to be with it or how not conservative. I mean, not necessarily. Some could view it as reckless, but in order to make money, a lot of times, you hear that phrase, in order to make money, you've got to spend money. And in order to play with the big boys, you've in order to get even in the playground, you've got to spend some dough, Now, there's always exceptions. I mean, again, the Diamondbacks had $100 million payroll or something the year that they went to the World Series. And, there are exceptions to the rule. I don't think it's that every team that spends money is going to have that shot, and every team that doesn't is not. But you've got to be a very well organized and a very well run organization, and an organization that understands how to get the most out of your players. I mean, you can even look at Tampa Bay. I mean, yeah, you can fault Tampa Bay because they don't spend a lot of money. They're in the postseason most years, so they figured something out, but then it's so hard for them to get deep in the postseason because they probably just, if they had maybe like $50 million more to spend, that's a team where, because it's run pretty darn well in terms of just how they use their players, not necessarily for the fans, but how they use their players. That's a team that you think could make a deeper run if they just spent a little bit more, or did something more. But they're where they are, and you know what? They might say like, well, this is how we keep a team alive. Like we just can't do anymore, and we don't never know who's telling the truth, right?
And just a quick note on this. Diamondbacks payroll was $145 million.
Oh, 145.
145, which was still
that's still different though.
It's still different than $100 million.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right, because that's one of those things that would like to be perpetuated by poor spending owners like Colorado,
right.
Et cetera. Is like, oh no, you can win on a short payroll. And
but
here's the key.
145 is not a ton. I mean,
it's
the Padres,
21st. It was 21st last year.
21st out of 30, right?
Yeah, and they lost to the Rangers, whose payroll was $251 million, the fourth highest.
Yeah.
So every team the last 20 years, except for the Kansas City Royals, has been in the top 10 in payroll that has won the World Series. And this year it'll either be the number 2 or the number 3 team in payroll that wins the World Series because they're going head-to-head. The number 1 team just bowed out in the NLCS, the Mets, and then there was the Guardians, who played at much more of a Diamondback level of like the 130s, 140s, and of course they made it as far as they can make it. You can make it a distance, but I think you agree, Annie, the biggest thing about these playoffs is getting in, right? And you can buy your way into the playoffs basically every year, almost every year.
Almost. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think you put yourself on the playground. You're not outside the fence looking in. But I mean, it doesn't guarantee. You look at the Padres 200 and was it 60 in 2023?
Right.
260 million.
Yeah. Wow.
And didn't get in, right? So I think it did. And you look at the Dodgers a lot of years. I mean, the Dodgers have spent a lot of years and they haven't made it past the NLDS, or they haven't made it to where they've made it this year, certainly.
But they've won 108 or 114 or
And then
107 games along the way.
And then you've got to wonder, too, like, for if you really put truth serum into a lot of these CEOs or ownership or whatever, making the playoffs might be kind of where, hey, if we make the playoffs, like that's, fans will still stay engaged. We can still get a little bit more money, like how many of them want to really put up the farm, not the farm system, but like as a euphemism, put up their farm to go and maybe necessarily have a shot at the World Series. I think they all want to win a World Series, but I think that there probably are some owners or some leadership groups or some whatever that are like, look, hey, we just got to make it in the playoffs and like we're doing pretty well, right?
I don't think every organization really wants to win a World Series.
I think that's all over sports. I think there are, like, all over sports, I think it's like, hey, you figured out a way to be somewhat profitable, get fans engaged.
There's a handful of organizations that definitely just, as long as we make money,
right,
does it really matter? Like, if you're making money and you don't have to spend a lot, and you're making, this X amount of money, do you really want to spend more money to win a World Series when you're already making money? You don't even have to try. I mean, that's a lot of organizations that are out there. Yeah. But to go back to Craig's point, what the NFL did, and it's a big reason why the NFL is king for a lot of reasons. Obviously, the sport's a little bit different. It's a contact, violent, carnage sport, which human beings love. But on top of that, they made a pact together to just be like, you know what? We're all going to make the same amount of money, but it's going to be so much that we're okay with this. And in Major League Baseball, the powers that be don't want to share at all, even though they could all probably make relatively the same amount of money. But it's like they're in control of the sport compared to the NFL, where, like Craig said, I mean, you got markets. I mean, the fact that the Green Bay Packers are a really good football team with the market that they have. I mean, the size of Green Bay is the size of El Cajon.
Right.
It's like 150,000 people. I mean, El Cajon's got 150,000 people. Could you imagine the El Cajon Packers playing on television right now? You'd be like, this is ridiculous that this is a team competing at a high level in the biggest sport in America. But it happens because of the way that they set up their revenue sharing, and that's why that league is so much fun. Of any given Sunday, you could have that in baseball, but a lot of greed is making it where you have the World Series that you have.
And baseball, you're right about the TV and everything in terms of the revenue sharing. Baseball does do revenue help or whatever. Like, the Padres for so many years got money from the teams that made more money, and that's put in to help the low market teams, right? And this past
that's an eyewash move, though.
This past year, the Padres are the ones who put money in to help the teams below them because they spent so much money in previous years, right? So baseball is a strange phenomenon, but again, like, are you going to get the ones to give up what is their bread and butter? Probably not.
No, you're not. And so we get this now. And I just won't accept all the national columnists and whatnot telling me how much I'm supposed to enjoy it. Like, you
100%.
really have to enjoy this one because this is just going to be the best of all the best. Well, this is Chick-fil-A versus McDonald's. This is Walmart versus Target. This is the IRS against the FBI. These are two gigantic institutions that care absolutely nothing about you, but are money-making monoliths with power beyond belief. And this time they've lined up against one another. Good. Maybe this will be the last time in 44 years. But
I did say last week I didn't want to go down this road, but I'll just go down again. Maybe it tires. Look, maybe the Dodgers win and maybe it tires them out, or maybe they don't win and it tires them out. However, as I said to myself last week on air, it's a loser mentality when you look at it that way. So.
Yes. I cannot bring myself to root for the Dodgers because, well, maybe then they'll take next year off mentally. Like,
they'll be partying so much. They'll be hungover in spring training.
Yeah. Shohei is not going to care about pitching anymore. He'll just chill.
What was funny was I was reading ESPN after the game, and it was like, the Dodgers did this to send Shohei Ohtani to the World Series for the first time in his career. Like, the whole lead was They all did what they were supposed to do to send Shohei Ohtani to the World Series for the first time.
This is what we
Probably a
all
lot
want.
of first-time World Series for a lot of guys on that team, but yeah.
That's going to be a lot of waving a flag in your face. This is what you want. You want this.
It's interesting that leagues think that people love. Well, maybe they do. You know, here's where I like.
They'll probably have good ratings. They probably will.
The perspective, though, for
Yeah.
me is maybe since I grew up in an underdog sports city,
Right.
is my mentality different than everybody else in the country that is used to and loving the fact that there are dynasties? I mean, how many times did we have to sit there from national media talk about you are missing, like, you must enjoy how great this Patriots dynasty is because you'll never see greatness like this again, and it's so great and it's so awesome, and Tom Brady and this is so awesome. And
Alabama
the whole
football.
time I wanted to throw up. It's the same thing Alabama football. It's the same thing. And Craig's going to roll his eyes at this, too, because he doesn't like the Bay Area. Same thing with the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah.
Every time there is a big brand that goes on a dynasty, the narrative is this is the greatest thing for the sport. And to me, I find it to be the most boring thing ever. Maybe is that because I have always rooted for teams that are underdogs.
Yes.
I mean, my college is an underdog. We only have 9,000 kids at our school, the college that I went to. All the teams I grew up rooting for here in San Diego are all underdogs.
Right.
If I was a fan of a perennial favorite, would I enjoy somebody else having a dynasty? I think the answer to that is still no.
If it's your team, you probably like the dynasty. But
I agree with that. I mean, if the Padres won like 5 World Series in a
Right.
row, I would be like, I'd be loving life,
Yeah.
right? But at the same time,
but David and Goliath is always better than Goliath.
I
and
feel like
Goliath.
that is that
I saw that
I
in the
think
chat
that's a
last week,
serious
saw that.
question though for all of us to discuss. Is it the fact that we are from a more underdog sports city that we like David and Goliath matchups more than 2 heavyweights going at it?
I think it's a good question to ask. Let's keep asking it. Here's what's coming up on the show. Already see some folks in the chat hankering for a taste of AJ Preller, and you're going to get the whole meal coming up at 11, not just a taste. We are going to carry AJ's annual end-of-season post-mortem press conference. It's going to be on Zoom. All the regular reporter voices that you're used to hearing will be on the Zoom call.
Yeah, no, we'll have it.
No, will be both heard, quite often consecutively. And then occasionally it'll go, no, yeah. And then you'll have to pick up on that clue because that is an important context clue. So we'll bring it all to you live at 11, and then we'll continue the 11 a.m. hour reacting to whatever AJ has to say.
Yeah, looking forward to hearing that. You know, I know that anyone who's covered these or heard these in the past, you don't always get a lot of specific information. However, it's good to get kind of an end of the season presser and end of the season, viewpoint from your GM and president of baseball ops. So I'm glad that he's doing it and glad that we'll be able to carry it.
Yeah, if you remember, this press conference last year was when we found out that everything was okay between AJ Preller and Bob Melvin. No problems after all. It's completely overblown, and they are committed to working together for at least another week, which is about how long that lasted. So we'll bring that all to you at 11. We've got What's Good coming up later this hour. Of course, we'll bring you the 12 o'clock sports fix. At the midpoint of the show, we'll have NFL weekend overreactions on Braden's football segment later. Today's silly game is Mind the Gap. We've got a lot to get to between here and 2 o'clock. Let's take our first time out. It's Annie and Elsten right here with you. Your midday hang, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 10:30 on the Fan. Welcome back. It's Annie and Elsten here with you. We talked about the baseball in the first segment, essentially just a lament over the Dodgers and the Yankees meeting one another in the World Series. How here in underdog San Diego just feels like, the battle of Walmart versus Target. And aren't you excited? You should be excited for it.
It is also
That's
for the Dodgers.
Target.
Target, yes. If you were to look back at the last 10 Dodgers teams, I guess, I don't know, they have Shohei this year, but Shohei honestly hasn't been the game changer in the postseason, right? But you would look back and you would not think it was this Dodgers team, because this Dodgers team had all the pitching problems and, had issues with their lineup for a chunk of the season. And so I think that they're really riding the whole, it was a hard year and, they had to be competitive till the end. And then, of course, all the postseason drama. But I don't know. It's hard to get it, stuffed down your throat all the time.
The biggest thing I think I've seen in this playoff this year's playoff trend, and it's something that I think is pretty consistent year over year, is that relief pitching runs out in the postseason.
It sure does.
If you don't have an absolute freaking stable of 8 guys, and the Padres came close, then your top guys, 2 things happen to them. They get tired, and as they continue, which reduces their performance, and the team that is seeing them game after game after game, they get locked in on these guys. They get locked in on little tells. They get locked in on little tips, tiny, minuscule things that you'd never find in the regular season because you're cruising city to city, market to market, series to series, and you've only got enough time to process this much. Well, in a playoff series, you can process the whole thing. And that's what I've seen team after team that has fallen in these playoffs. They've done so when their bullpen has collapsed. Now, the Padres are an exception to that. They bowed out when their offense collapsed at the hands of a bullpen. And the biggest thing that I would say about LA getting through 3 playoff rounds is that they have done a very good job. Dave Roberts has done a very good job of not overexposing his top relievers. He's used them all, but he hasn't cranked them out there game after game after game after game. You haven't seen Kopech 5 times in a series, and then he gets blown up the 4th and 5th time. But with a team like Cleveland, they had no choice but to keep running those 4 dudes out there over and over again, and eventually all 4 of them wound up giving up something.
Yeah, and they did make some good moves. I think that the Padres made excellent moves at the trade deadline. The Dodgers ended up making some good moves too. I mean, Tommy Edman has been an absolute game changer for them this postseason, and he was injured when they took him from the trade deadline. They didn't know what player that they were going to get, through it all. And he was a good player, but you're still taking a risk there. And then they ended up getting some good arms. Of course, the Padres did too. And I think that the Padres, had they not done what they did at the trade deadline, they would have been in a much worse position. They needed those arms to get them into the playoffs. And had they gone farther, I think that they would have had decent, really, good results. Maybe not always perfect, but good results from having the arms that they did. But you're right. I mean, the Dodgers strengthened their bullpen. They got a few pieces to help them. Jack Flaherty, although I don't think is an ace by any means, has been able to do what needs to be done enough, right? Not every time, but enough. Yoshinobu Yamamoto seemed to get a little stronger, throughout the postseason at times. But again, it's their pitching is still vulnerable, but they've been able to manage around it and hit around it and get those bats hot at the right time, and that's made a huge difference for them.
Yeah, I mean, Dodgers made good moves at the deadline. All the moves paid off. Padres made good moves at the deadline. All their moves paid off. The 2 teams had to face one another in a National League Division Series instead of a National League Championship Series, and it went the way it went. And now LA's on to the World Series. They will face the Yankees, who, again, took advantage of a Cleveland bullpen that just ran out of smoke. I couldn't even imagine being a Guardians fan and going down on the heels of Clase just giving it up game after game after game.
Yeah.
You know, the guy who didn't, I think he blew like 3 saves the entire season. And then it's just every game that he comes in, he's either coming in a tie game and giving up the lead, or he's coming in with the lead and he's giving up the tie. It's
all
really
the stuff
been
you don't
ugly.
expect. You know, it's yeah. I mean, Class A should be nails for them, and was.
But you get tired,
Right.
you get overexposed, you get overseen. The Yankees clued in on tells on Class A. It was clear that they clued in on certain tells on Class A because they were knowing exactly when to go to right. Like they just had it locked in on the guy.
And who's to say, like, if you got like a Dodgers 30 for 30 at the end of the, you know, in a few years, which none of us will probably watch, but there could be a clip that shows on social media that goes around that the Padres might have been the hardest team they faced. I mean, we'll see how it goes with the Yankees, but you know, certainly I think the Padres were harder than the Mets for the Dodgers. At least, you know, to get through those first games. And I think, I don't know. We'll see how it goes with the Mets, but the Yankees. But for the Dodgers, I do think, you know, it was a good fight against the Padres, and the Padres just unfortunately just got cold at the wrong time.
Hey, it's going to be a good World Series. I know it's going to be a good World Series. It almost has to be. 2 good teams. You know, the Yankees have an actual ace in Cole. They've actually got someone they can throw out there that potentially could help shut down what's happening for LA. If the Dodgers are going to continue to score, you know, 10, 11 runs a game, they're going to win the World Series. But if Stanton continues to hit a homer every game, and Soto's going to be locked in the way he is, I mean,
Juan Soto had a big game. He had a big game the other night.
You know, hey, listen, Target's got some great deals. Walmart, I tell you, man, you know, some of the specials are to die for. And when the 2 go head to head, whoo, your loyalties are going to be put to the test. And that's what we got. We got the All Corporation World Series. We've got the behemoth, monolithic, gigantic television contract World Series. And, you know, at some point we'll find ourselves enjoying it. When we come back, how about what's good? We'll get into some of the good things that we might have individually seen over the course of the weekend that was. We've got so many things from the weekend that was, but we got A.J. Preller live at 11 a.m. His press conference, you'll hear it live on the home of Padres baseball, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Well, we'll find. Braden, what's good?
Had a pretty good college football Saturday. It was great.
Yeah, it was.
All the teams that me and my buddies root for all got a dub, which was nice. Got to enjoy my time doing a doubleheader at USD. It was homecoming this weekend for all the Toreros out there. So great crowd at the volleyball game and at the football game. Toreros got W's in both. Big win for USD women's volleyball. They were able to knock off the number 1 team in the West Coast Conference at
Wow.
the time.
That's cool.
In the Washington State Cougars. So they split with those guys. And then USD football took care of business against Marist. Fantasy football was good. It was a good overall weekend. Got to hang out with some buddies and kind of relax.
Nice. Very
Very
straightforward. I spent a lot of the weekend trying to organize our Padres Hot Tub Fantasy Basketball draft. So it's been a struggle.
Wait, what?
Been a struggle.
Aren't you all fantasy drafted already?
The season starts tomorrow.
For what?
The NBA.
Oh, the NBA draft.
Basketball.
Oh,
Basketball.
Okay, I thought we were like on football or no. You're talking NBA draft. Okay.
Yeah. Indeed. So I've been herding cats all weekend. Hey, it's your turn to pick.
Oh.
They asked for a slow draft, an email draft, where everyone picks when it's their, just on their time. Like, hey, it's your turn, but, if you have to finish the segment, then
and then make your
pick,
Yeah.
or just ghost us for 4 hours and then make your pick.
Maybe you have to give them like a time frame, like you have 2
we've
hours
got a time
to make
frame
your
now,
pick or whatever.
because it's not getting done. If
Yeah.
at 6 o'clock tonight it's not done, we're going to every 2 minutes at that point until it's
Do
done.
you feel pretty good about your selections?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
good.
I feel very good so far. My buddy John, the producer at Yahoo, said my whole team's going to be hurt, but I don't agree with him. I disagree. I
you
got
have Kawhi on
Giannis.
there?
I got Giannis. No, I don't have Kawhi. That's the point. I got Giannis.
Kawhi never plays.
Got Ja Morant looking for the breakout season for Ja after
Ja.
after all those bad, leaving the bad stuff in the rearview mirror.
Do you have any Lakers? Do you have
No
Bronny
Lakers.
Jr. on
No,
there?
no,
You didn't
he
draft
will not
him.
be picked.
You sure about
I got Zion.
sleeper of a lifetime,
Paolo.
Craig? Missed out.
No, I got a good team, but that's still going on. Also, hey, here's what I'm going to say. What's good? Our beloved Lions are good. It was a good game yesterday.
I almost went with, for the Lions, their kicker, who was talking after the game and was like 18 months ago, I want to say he was laying brick. He was doing something with bricks, all right? I'm not sure if that's
I love
a
lamp.
pause, but he was doing something with bricks 18
What was
months
he
ago, and then now he is the kicker, and it was really cool. It was like a really sentimental moment for him, and I mean that's kickers in the NFL, right? Like they're working in the grocery store one year and then they're kicking the next year. But it's still really cool for him and a very nice sentimental story.
Yeah, no, I just thought overall, Lions are a tough team. Minnesota's good. Like Minnesota's legitimately decent, and
Those are the best 2 teams in the NFC.
Right.
it seems
Jared
like it.
Goff had a good game, and
Jared Goff all of a sudden is on this Phil Simms stretch of just never incomplete a pass. It's wild.
they lost Aiden Hutchinson, but they have a really good defense, the Lions. So
They do, but it was missing yesterday. That
a little lacking.
just that impact pass rusher, it changes everything. So Minnesota
good,
was
for sure.
they were able to hang into the game and then get back into the game because Darnold had time to throw. And if Hutchinson's there, Darnold's not going to have time to throw, and probably that game runs away, just like the
Takes
last
him out of
couple of
it, yeah.
games, right? I mean, that Cowboys game was a complete runaway because when the Lions had Hutchinson and they knew you were going to throw, pin the ears back, send the rush, you're in big trouble. Now, a little more room to work with out there. I mean, Vikings had their shot. Kevin O'Connell, good on you.
2 good teams for sure.
Really, really
Yeah.
good. And so that was fun. And I watched that in the morning, and then I golfed in the afternoon. And shot 89 for the 6th time in my life. Under 90.
Very good.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I was very happy about it.
Yes.
I was very happy about it. It's all about balance, Annie. That's what I'm learning more and more. It's all about balance. It's not about strength. It's about balance.
I thought you meant balance for your life. You mean
well,
balance
that
on the
too.
golf course. Yeah.
That too.
So more about finesse.
We also went. We added to our Halloween decorations.
Oh, did you-
No, there you go. You set your deadline.
I did.
Did you
We've
beat
now
the deadline, or are you just right behind
I think
the
so.
deadline?
I mean, well, They're my deadlines. I can move them however I want, right?
We moved the swinging ghoul. It's not on the front porch anymore. It's now hanging from a tree
Nice.
in the front yard.
Front porch was good.
It was, but
I think it
the
was
new
freaking out the
spot
Soprano family too
is
much.
even scarier. It's actually scarier.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
I saw some good ones over the weekend. I'm gonna post them to the IG soon. But so you guys got yours.
We got a 5-foot grinning jack-o'-lantern inflatable.
It's pretty good.
And then I took the little Christmas light that we have for the lawn that usually will sprinkle the house with lights, and I
Yeah.
just tucked it under Jack's chin there. So now he's got like creepy like
Oh, that's cool.
sparkle on him. Or maybe it's not creepy. Maybe your creepy may vary. But
My family bought some really
effort.
creepy doll looking like ghouly
The dolls are creepy.
with missing eyes, but they're like the size of like a small child,
Yeah.
and they like make noise and stuff, and say incredibly weird things. They're very creepy, and we left them at the front door. So when you like wake up in the morning, you walk down the stairs, they're just staring at you, which is great. But
Screaming.
those will probably be in the haunted house that they're putting on.
My friend used to have a life-size Chucky, or whatever. And when her daughter was growing up, like she would scare the heck out of her, like leaving it in certain places and, never knowing what door you were going to open. And there was Chucky holding the knife. Oh, so good.
Chucky's kind of funny.
I don't know. I mean, like
Chucky's kind of funny. His movies are funny.
The dolls that have like the pigtails and stuff, like to me, those
Oh,
are more
yeah, the
creepy.
pigtail
Yeah,
dolls
those
are
more
creepy.
Yeah.
I really appreciate everyone who was out there who was creative.
Yeah.
A lot of folks just do the graveyard. They just
I saw
turn
a lot
their
of
front lawn into a
graveyards.
graveyard.
Yeah, I saw a lot of graveyards.
Graveyard's good if you. I like the homemade graveyards
Mm-hmm.
with like the tombstones that have little messages on them that are funny.
Like the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, like the Haunted Mansion, exactly.
Jack Skellington. But,
Those are well, no, you can't see those because it's the Nightmare Before Christmas ones. But I digress.
There was one that Saturday, as we went on a slightly longer dog walk,
Yeah.
they've got 4 of those tombstones with their own individualized messages.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
those
cool.
are-
Yeah,
those are
that's
great.
fun.
Well,
Yeah.
is it? Here was the message was what was it exactly? It's like here lie my wife's buried here. This is where she lies. She's now at peace, and so am I.
That's weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, that's
Like-
not like the comical ones that you see. Those
It's
are-
like-
that was just kind of
My
weird.
wife is
Right,
buried in the front
right,
yard, and
right.
I'm happier now that she's gone.
Yeah, that was a miss.
It's kind of a
That was
kind
a
of
miss.
a rough
Like,
message to me.
Are you on your way to
the
some kind
neighborhood.
of divorce? Is
Yeah,
there
what are you-
some
what are you
kinda
saying
like,
right
Is
now?
she
Is she gonna go
actually dead?
missing? Right.
Yeah, is she actually dead? Is she okay? Are you okay? These are the questions I had walking by.
Okay, Adam in the chat just said Dead Doll Lane in Annie's neck of the woods in Alpine is great. Now, I
What?
have never heard of that, so I just Googled it. There's literally Dead Dolly Lane in Alpine where artist Tony Fusco has lined her driveway with dismembered, disfigured doll parts strung up
great.
on barbed wire. How did
No,
I not know
thanks.
about this?
Wonderful. Sounds great.
That was like
On Hoppatul Road.
Can't
Oh,
wait.
Adam, thanks for that. I will
My
let-
goodness.
there's a lot of haunted places in San Diego. What's the one? It was
I think this might
Elfland
just
Forest.
be up all year. Like,
What's that? Isn't Elfin Forest? What's it called? Is that what it's called?
Elfin Forest, maybe?
Elfin Forest.
Up in Escondido, it's haunted. It's like
Oh.
an area that's haunted.
Oh, yeah. In,
It's like up by. It's like
I see it. Recreational Reserve.
yeah, it's a creepy place.
Escondido.
There's a lot of there's a lot of ghost stories
It's
about
followed
that
by
area.
murders. When you Google it.
Yeah,
that's
that's
a
That's a place, and then they said like Proctor.
Oh yeah,
Proctor
look
Road.
at this.
You've never heard of
Elfin
Elfin
Forest is rumored to be extremely haunted.
Yeah, it's an extremely haunted area. My parents told me about that, and my buddy was like, "Yeah, actually, I had to house sit one time in Elfin Forest, and I didn't know about the whole haunted thing." And he's like, "The whole time, it was the weirdest place I've ever been." And he's like, "I didn't find out till after that it was a haunted
There
place."
have been ghosts of ladies in white, women floating without their feet touching or something like that. Anyways,
Yes.
it's interesting. I did not know.
You didn't know
this.
about Elfin
No.
Forest, the hidden San Diego
I didn't.
gem
I didn't even
that
know
is
about
a
Dead Dolly Lane, and
Sounds
that's
like a Twilight
10
Zone
miles
episode.
from me.
Yeah,
you
well.
need to babysit inside the Elfin Forest. That's where the babies are, in the forest. Go babysit
the
there.
Proctor Valley Monster. I found out about that last night.
Sit in a darkened clearing with my children. Nothing bad will happen.
I knew Adam Paul would be on it.
I did the
Elfin
Whaley
Forest.
House, yes. I see
Look
the
it
Whaley
up.
House in the chat. I've done that.
Look up the Elfin Forest stuff. Don't
I'm
go
gonna look
hang
that
out
up.
up there at night in Escondido.
I don't know
Sketch.
about the Proctor Monster.
Proctor Valley Monster.
Oh.
It's a rumor it started in 1940s.
You guys.
Fun stuff.
I just have an inflatable jack-o'-lantern.
Spooky times, Craig.
And AJ Preller, he's up next. Well, that's brilliant. Apparently, AJ Preller's on a call.
I mean, he's having to make moves. He's having to do things.
Just working
Maybe
out
he's,
a deal.
Tying up loose ends of a contract as we sit here and wait.
Would that be hilarious if he came on at like 11:03 and was like, "Yeah, no, I just had to just get this locked in. Ruben Niebla, 8-year deal."
Yeah, Mike Schultz, locked in, extension.
All I'm really hoping for is a Niebla announcement. Now, Schilt, I mean, I expect a Schilt announcement, but I'm hoping for a Niebla announcement.
Right. Yeah, we haven't heard that yet, and we
Yes.
know his contract is coming up here. So
Let's get that taken care of. Nate in the chat. The call is actually coming from inside the house. It's from upstairs. AJ.
don't say this, do say that.
Come here and bring us your notebook. This is going to be taken over. Kiko is going to do the press conference now. All right, so we're just waiting, and as soon as AJ Preller is available and they introduce him to the press, we will then go and bring you that live. This is presumably from Petco Park, from his offices. And there's assembled San Diego sports media hither and yon on Zoom.
It's over Zoom, right? So
They're zooming.
they're zooming in.
Meanwhile, I was looking up while we wait the elfin forest during the break. Apparently, the White Witch has left the elfin forest. She has stopped haunting.
I'm not
the elfin
convinced. I think it's
forest.
more that the houses around there were like, we don't want people parking in their cars and going on their trails late at night looking for these ghosts. So let's just say that the white, what is she called?
The White Witch.
The White Witch.
Yeah.
She was tired of being here at the Elfin Forest. She went on to somewhere else.
Sounds like we got to do a live show. See if the White Witch shows up.
Well, I
We'll have
mean,
Craig interview the White Witch.
I feel like you guys are saying that the Harmony Grove Spiritual Center is bought and paid for. They are saying that her hauntings no longer frequent the elfin forest. And I mean, who am I to doubt the veracity and the integrity?
Maybe they found peace with her.
Did you look up the Proctor Valley Monster?
No, I could look that one up next.
It's a 5-mile road that connects Jamul and Chula Vista. It's a dirt road. They say it's haunted. I saw that last night, and then I looked into it, and it was just kind of like, it's just a couple of stories started from the 1940s about a monster because some kids found like a half-eaten cow out there.
Yes.
Wow.
A disarranged cow is what it says.
Disarranged.
Disarranged. It's not good.
That doesn't sound
No,
very
it needs
pleasant.
to be organized normally.
I see it.
With the hooves and the udder and such.
Accounts vary, but it's either a tall, hairy Bigfoot type or a disarranged cow bovine type.
All right.
Come on.
Bovine.
AJ Preller is sitting down.
Okay.
Great.
Craig Huner's still talking.
Very good. Derek, we're about to get there. We're vamping because AJ needed a minute.
He's explaining all the rules.
Okay,
about the
rules have
Zoom.
been explained.
Put your questions here. Raise your hand
There he
here.
is.
There we go. All
And
right.
now here's
Right.
AJ Preller.
Yeah, obviously, a little bit for today, looking back on this year, and then definitely looking forward towards the off season, and we obviously wish that we were playing baseball at this point in time. Felt like we had a team that obviously was capable of playing until the very end. But overall, through this week and a chance to reflect a little bit. Obviously, a very good season for our big league team, for the organization. A lot of credit, going out to a lot of different people. We've got a great organization, and I think from top to bottom this year, through baseball operations, our scouts, our player development group, they constantly, one of the best scouting and player development groups in the game, give us a ton of options and flexibility. And seeing young players come through the system, there's nothing better than that. And our group has done a great job from that standpoint. Our front office and analysts, like going through the off season and looking to kind of retool this team. You need people that are constantly very accurate in their assessments and their evaluations, and feel like I get great information from that group constantly. Obviously, seeing a new manager with Mike Schilt, he had been in the organization for a few years, and we knew what he was capable of. But seeing the way the staff and Mike led this team on the field was a lot of fun to be a part of. I thought the staff was extremely tight. We had staff members that came from the system. We had staff members that had been on our previous big league staffs and teams, and then had some experienced guys that came in from outside. And I think Mike being able to blend and get those guys together on the same page and getting our team to play at a really high level, a lot of credit goes there. Again, for me personally, like, obviously, from like a lot of emotion, going into the year. I think just trying to kind of fulfill Peter Seiler and the legacy that he put out there for the entire organization, what this is about. I think it was a big motivator for everybody. We have a very motivated group, but I think making sure that we went out and kind of fulfilled that legacy and played well. That was definitely something in the back of everybody's mind all the time. Clearly it comes down to players and having super talented players that go out on the field and perform. And again, it's now been 3 times in 5 years we've played in the postseason. That's a compliment to a lot of the guys that have been here, and then some of the new guys that came in, how quickly they blended together. It was a lot of fun to watch that and see that and be a part of that. And honestly, doing it for the best fan base in the country. It's pretty obvious right now. Something's very special going on in San Diego. The fans love this team, love this ballpark, and the city is just so excited. And I think for us, that's where it stings the most. We do this job. I think from day one, I've spoke about being on that big stage. That big stage is the World Series, and we're not going to be content till we get there as an organization. But we've got a lot of people very motivated to build on this year, and seeing the excitement and the support the fans give us every single day. At heart, I'm a huge baseball fan, and I think just feeling that throughout the city over the last 8 months, 9 months, their love for this team, this organization, their appreciation. We're going to do everything we can to go get better now over the next 6 or 8 months, and be back in a spot where we're playing in October, and won't be satisfied until we're playing on that big stage in the World Series. So, I think I just want to open it up now for any questions.
Yeah, we'll get started with Kevin Acey of the UT.
Hey, Jay, my first one would be, now you've had a week or so to reflect on it, what's the explanation for how the bats went cold for the last 2.5 games?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it's part of it is like postseason baseball. It's 2 games. I mean, I think you look up and if a guy goes 0 for 8, he's not a postseason performer, and obviously during the regular season it's just 0 for 8. It's 2 games, etc. So I think we'll again, like, talk about it a little bit more. I think our offense worked best when it was kind of move the line, use the big part of the field. Obviously credits to the Dodger pitching. We know that they've got a good staff, especially a good that bullpen staff. We didn't quite solve that at the end of the season, but probably a little bit of hey, it's 2 games. I think we'll look at it as a group and see, hey, are there any other learnings we can have in terms of to make sure that our offense from top to bottom all year long, and especially in the postseason, clicks on all cylinders. But I think we're best when we're moving the ball, putting pressure on other teams, and we didn't quite do that enough at the end of the year. And I think we'll dig in a little bit more there and make sure that we're in a spot all year next year where we're playing the style of offense we want to play.
You alluded to making it as far as you did, being as successful as you were, being a motivator. But I know that's like your outlook at start of every offseason. Like, how are you positioned, and why will this be the year that you guys can actually make the postseason 2 years in a row?
Yeah, I mean, again, like, we've got like a really good foundation, core pieces from a roster standpoint. It takes really talented players. We've got a lot of guys coming back that they're just really good players and talented players. And I think, again, like, this team, the ability to learn and grow from this experience, from this year. I feel very confident that's there for this group. And again, I think with Mike and the coaching staff, I think we'll do a very good job here over the course of the next couple of weeks and months to kind of look at things, and if there's areas we need to shore up, we'll try to do that from a roster standpoint, and then from a process standpoint, we'll do the same. So I think it's just a lot of faith in our players, our staff, our coaching staff. Learning from some of those experiences in the past. Obviously 20 and 22 we got there, and then didn't get back in 21 and 23. So I think a lot of people that are in the building have been through those experiences. You're always better when you kind of have gone through it before. So I think we'll put a lot of emphasis on making sure that we don't take anything for granted, and we do everything we can to get back in the postseason next year.
All right, next we'll go to AJ Cassaville, MLB.com.
AJ, I know you talked about Mike and his impact. What kind of priority is it going to be to sign a different contract with him going forward, to not have him going to the next season with 1 year left deal?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, we just started, so just started those conversations in terms of myself and sitting down with Eric Getzender and Eric Grubner and others, and I think again, we talk about getting people with ability and then having stability, so and rewarding people that perform. So I think from our standpoint, that's going to be something that we look to do here over the course of the next couple weeks. Is try to see if we can line up with Mike and the coaching staff, and having a group that's shown that they can get results and did a good job with this group and this staff, is making sure that people feel rewarded, and that we have some people that are together in that area, and from a coaching standpoint, that are able to come back and kind of build and grow on what we did this year. So again, starting those conversations, that's what the off season's for. But the motivation's there to try to see if we can line up, and I know from Mike's standpoint, he obviously enjoys it here, wants to be here, but I know his focus also is just go get better, and if you do that, then I think he has a lot of trust and faith that things are, from an organization standpoint, that we'll figure some things out there.
And I know the offseason just kind of started, but we had asked you about Joe Musgrove and replacing him short term. Now going into next season, how do you go about that, knowing you're not going to have him for at least a pretty big chunk of the season? How do you go about filling out the rotation from there?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, same thing. Go back to the process. We'll kind of starting that process of evaluation, ranking, looking at trade, free agency, outside the organization, and kind of weigh out what the what the cost is to do business on that front. And then obviously internal, inside options. We had guys step up this year. I think we'll be looking at obviously some of the guys that were on the roster this year to step up. And also you look at guys like the Matt Waldrons, Randy Vasquez, some guys at their first year of from a big league standpoint that showed they can start in the big leagues. It's our job now to continue to develop those guys and have them take bigger steps here in year 2 and year 3 in certain cases. So, you talk about it all the time. We're always looking for pitching and starting pitching. Joe's a definite, it's a big loss, no doubt, to not have somebody like Joe all year long on the mound, or, what he brings to the clubhouse. So, we're gonna look a lot of different places, but that's what the next 5 or 6 months are for, to go line up some good options and guys that we feel good about. We've done it over the last few years. You look at Waka, Lugo a couple of years ago, Nick Martinez at different points in time, and obviously this year bringing in a Michael King, bringing in a Dylan Cease. So we will we'll keep weighing out all our options, and hopefully we feel good. We'll bring in some guys that can try to fill that void.
Derek Togerson, NBC7.
Hey, AJ, just kind of a big picture kind of thing here. How different does this time of year feel right now than 12 months ago, when there were so many different questions surrounding this ball club with the Juan Soto situation, the managerial situation? How much more stable do you feel right now?
Yeah, every off season's been a little different. Obviously, last off season, there's starting at the top with Peter and the health situation and losing Peter. So I mean, I think that was never have I don't think ever be in a situation like that again, where somebody that obviously you work closely with and love and respect, not with us. So that kind of had a huge effect on the whole organization. But I think we rallied around everything as a group. And each off season brings up a lot of questions always, so obviously having coming from a spot where, we had success this year, I think we'll build and grow off of that. Every off season though, you get into the roster, the questions, hey, free agency, trades, arbitration, that's no different, I think honestly, and every off season kind of brings up its own set of challenges. And again, I think we'll it's kind of it's one of the fun parts of the job, and, we'll get back into it here next couple of weeks and look to make some good decisions again.
And then speaking of guys looking at extensions, you have several entering the last year of arbitration, Arise, Cease, King, and then Profar, Higashioka. Have you started conversations or put any kind of a thought into the possibility of bringing as many of those guys back as possible? And is there a pecking order with that group?
Yeah, I think so far it's just been some real baseline, some real basic communication with agents, just explaining like, hey, we're interested, and we'll have some conversations, and whether that's multi-year or 1 year situation. I think it's just kind of like reaching out, and I think really that's all we've done so far is like reach out, start in the process of talking to teams from a trade standpoint, just kind of figuring out what teams are interested in doing, what they're trying to accomplish this offseason. And then very very surface level conversation with agents, trying to get a sense of kind of time frame and timeline. But that's really what the next couple of weeks are for. And it really doesn't start until the GM meetings. So ultimately we'll keep talking and get a little bit more active with our conversations between now and I think that's November 4th. But I think the next couple of weeks we'll be prepared to get more detail on those spots. I think the good news, a lot of those guys have indicated that they really enjoy being here. They enjoy playing here in front of our fan base. They love the organization. They love their teammates. I think everybody kind of feels like I had I don't know 5 or 6 different conversations where to a person, they were saying, hey, this is the best team I've played on. And some guys that have played on 100-win teams, playoff teams, and they were like, this is the best team, and this is, from an organization standpoint, the best feeling they've had, of just being, honestly, to get, being together and enjoying it, enjoying baseball. So, where does that leave us? What does that mean? Again, hopefully, players, they talk and, they're interested in coming back and being a part of it, and we'll tackle all that here in the next couple of weeks and months.
Thanks, AJ.
Marty Caswell.
Hi, AJ. What's your understanding as to what payroll expectations are for 2025? And do you think you're in a position to add after this season?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's I think another question. I think again, the next couple of weeks, we'll start laying that all out. We'll get into the ownership's always been great here of giving us, hey, this is having pretty clear guidelines of what it looks like. And especially when you get into we get into November, December, when you really have to start making decisions. So I think that's all part of the next couple of weeks. I think the biggest thing I focused on right now in our group is just kind of knowing the landscape. Here's the different possibilities. Here's what's going to be out there. Obviously, being open-minded to what different paths take us to from a payroll standpoint. The only thing I've seen repeatedly when I've been here, and I think we've demonstrated is we want to win. We're here to win a championship. I think we're going to do it responsibly, but we're looking to win championships. We're looking to put to get in the playoffs. And when you do that, if we need to have certain resources, we'll have those conversations. But that's really what the next couple of months are for. And it's not like, hey, you have to be at this price point to do X, Y, or Z. It's kind of there's a lot of different ways to do that. We've done it a lot of different ways over the last 5 years or so, and I think that's what we're going to get to over the next couple weeks and months, depending on what players are out there and what we need to do.
And the type of success that Jackson Merrill had this season, which was rather extraordinary, does that make you more likely to fast track some of your top prospects in the organization?
No, I've seen that out there, talking to Freeze or Dallas. No, I mean, I think each guy's an individual. I think that's the way we treat it. We look at each situation. The players kind of they tell you, kind of when they're ready. So, I think Jackson's situation, the talented guys that have great makeup, yeah, they're usually, we're not scared to challenge, players like that. But it's really an individual type deal, based on their age, their development, their skill set, and their maturity. And Jackson checked a lot of those boxes. So I think our staff felt pretty confident that he had earned the right to come to spring training and compete. And then he won the job in spring training. There's been other times with prospects where they just haven't been there. We're not going to put them in a spot, where we're going to rush them or their development. But, obviously, whether it's, Chris Paddock or Tatis or, Jackson Merrill, some of those guys have come in and shown they're at a different stage and they were able to contribute rookie year. But that's all kind of individual decisions that our staff makes.
And lastly, do you expect your entire coaching staff to return this season? I know Niebla was up. Where are things with him?
Yeah, I mean, again, like I've had a lot of talks with Mike over the with Schilt over the last few days. Like I think really productive. On a lot of different fronts, but definitely with the staff. And I think, I think probably like again, like I think, me and him, we sit down similar to what we did last year. You sit down, and talk about what's the best staff for this team, this group. And I think in general, like a pretty good feeling that we like the group that we had from a staff standpoint. So obviously, we'll get into some contract conversation and discussions with each staff member. But I think again, I think we feel like we had a staff that was very productive. They did a really good job with a talented group and our players. And I think from Mike's standpoint, from my standpoint, looking to bring that group back. Ruben's done a really good job here. He's been a big part of it over the last 3 seasons. And really that the whole pitching group, it's Ruben, it's Peter Somerville, it's Ben Fritz, it's Mike Borzello from the advanced standpoint. They've done a great job, and Ruben's done a great job leading that group.
Dennis Lynn, The Athletic.
Hi, AJ. Going off that, Ruben's been mentioned in the past as a guy who might be a future MLB manager candidate. Do you expect him to come back next year? And are there going to be conversations about maybe him exploring that path this offseason?
I mean, I think from the conversations I've had with Ruben, we have a great relationship, and I know he loves it here. This is home for him. His family's here. I know he loves our players and the organization. So again, he's very talented and he's done a really good job. So I don't think there's any like down the road type possibilities. You say, hey, is Ruben capable of doing X, Y, and Z? He's capable of doing a lot. We're hoping it's with the Padres, and I feel confident he likes his time. He really loves the organization, loves it here, loves the city. And that's conversations for the next couple of weeks, and my guess is we'll line up on something there.
And who do you think will be playing shortstop or starting at shortstop for you next year? And if you don't have a firm answer right now, what do you see as your options there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've got a lot of athletes on the field and different possibilities, but haven't really gotten too much into that. I think that's again, like we'll work through that over the next couple of weeks. And I know last year we were probably it took us a little bit to get through there just because we were trying to work through the roster, Soto, Ha-Sung situation, some different trade possibilities. I would think we'll be able to have a pretty like an earlier idea about where things are how things are gonna unfold, and be able to go to the players a little bit earlier and talk about it. But those are conversations, honestly, for the next couple of weeks. We really haven't touched on that yet so far this offseason.
Jeff Sanders, UT.
Hey AJ, you set the luxury tax last year. I know you haven't talked about payroll constraints this year, but if you're going to bring back guys, add guys, you're going to get past that pretty quick. How do you view the luxury tax as an obstacle, for you guys moving forward?
Yeah, again, I mean, I think every we try to look at it. We understand. And I think our group does a good job managing and understanding what the different decisions mean. I think from our standpoint, it's not about, hey, it's one set number or anything like that. I think there's a lot of benefit, like we mentioned this year, there's a lot of benefit in resetting the number. But again, like we've got a 1-year plan, we've got a 3 and 5-year plan. I think part of that too is you got to get to the offseason and kind of see the players that are out there and the different possibilities and make decisions there. But again, I think for us, it's an openness to, we've had teams and gone to the playoffs with less than the under the tax number. We've had teams that have been north of the tax number. I think the goal for us is put a really good team on the field that fans want to see play and are proud of and excited about. And I think there's a lot of different ways to do that, and it won't be about a specific number or anything like that. I think it's more about what fits for us both this year and the next few years, and how that fits on our roster. So.
Does that mean ownership will have an appetite to be able to go over the luxury tax if that makes sense for the roster?
Yeah, I can again, like I think these are conversations that we're going to get into over the course of the next couple of weeks. But again, like I know, like in general, like when I sit down and we talk about it, it's about winning. It's about winning championships, doing it responsibly. It's not, and ultimately, we got to get into it. But they've shown like repeatedly since I've been here, and that we're going to be open, and that's all you can ask for at this point in time. And I think we'll see how the offseason presents itself and probably get a better sense of that here over the course of the next few weeks, honestly.
Last year, trading Juan Soto kind of was a cure-all. It cut payroll and addressed several facets of the roster. How do you view the challenge this year when there isn't that kind of person to trade and you do have a number of spots that you need to address?
Yeah, I mean, every offseason, like I said, there's different challenges, situation like with the roster. I mean, we've got, again, like we've got the foundation of a good team that's coming back, so that's positive. But obviously some of the free agent players, Profar, Higgy, Ha-Sung Kim situation coming off the injury. Those are all things that we're going to weigh out, and if those guys, if those guys don't come back, that creates opportunity and spots that we're going to have to evaluate. Joe's injury that was mentioned earlier, Musgrove, and continue to add to the starting pitching front. Tanner Scott, who did a tremendous job for us, out of the bullpen. So those are all areas that we've got to look at. I think the good news is, we've got, when you come back with a team with Manny and Tatis and Cronenworth, Xander, Jackson, on, Luis, a rotation with Cease, Darvish, and Michael King, who took a huge step this year, a bullpen that, is really deep, full year, Jason Adam. It's a good place to start. And then, like similar to last year, we had to weigh out Juan Soto's situation versus potentially moving him. We'll do that on a bunch of different individual fronts over the next couple of weeks, and hopefully have something that makes some sense when we get to spring training.
Great, thank you.
Back to AJ Cassavell.
AJ, I guess have two one shortstops playing in the outfield that we're going to ask you about in off seasons, whether they're potential to move back to shortstop. Tatis and Merrill, do you view them as outfielders given how well they've played out there, or is there some possibility that they could be back in the infield? Is that one of the options that I had mentioned?
I think they probably love that possibility. They always joke around all the time, like whatever's needed. And, I think the great part with those guys, they're athletes and they're talented athletes and they can play different spots. So I think it was Dennis earlier. Yeah, we've got a lot of guys, Xander, Ha-Sung, obviously Jackson and Toddy have done it. We've got a lot of guys that have done it. But, again, like I think it's, those guys are obviously Toddy winning the Platinum 2 years ago, Jackson doing a tremendous job in center field this year. We know that they're really good in what they do in the outfield. So, we'll have that conversation, and Mike and the staff and, our front office scouting group will be part of all of those conversations. We'll obviously start the year with a shortstop, so we'll figure it out. But honestly, that's the next couple weeks, and I think the good news, we've got a lot of guys that are probably open to it, but more importantly can do it, and then we'll figure out what's best for our team, what's out there on the market, Ha-Sung's situation as well, and and go from there with it. So,
and then the last thing for me, just if you could kind of assess the way the last 12 months have gone. You've traded a lot of guys from your system. You've gained a lot of big league talent now. How do you kind of view where the farm stands now going forward with the draft class that you just brought in and all the pieces that you kind of have at the lower levels, and where things are overall?
Yeah, I think it's it's been a theme the last few years. Like again, like it's a compliment to our scouts and our our scouting group on the amateur side, international side, player development. They just keep doing. You just got to keep reloading, and that draft class every single year is probably as important as any date on the calendar. And same thing with that January 15th international signing period. And again, like we've been able to make trades, and you look up and internally feel very confident that we've got a really strong farm system. And I think you look up right now, Ethan, Salas, and Leo, they're playing in the fall league and opening a lot of eyes. From a pitching standpoint, that we've talked about it. We traded some pitching at the deadline last year, so that will take a little bit of time to replenish. But honestly, there's a group of guys that are, that honestly we talked about that are kind of starting to progress up the system, AA, AAA. That'll be in big league camp and start get some looks that we feel really good about. So, we said it a few years ago that we felt like we had one of the better systems in the game, even after making these trades. I think that was after the 21 with Snell and Darvish and Musgrove, and and then the same thing after the Soto deals. And we looked up over the last few years, and the industry kind of tells you. And I just tell you, I feel very confident about what we have in our system right now. Again, that we have some guys that are gonna help us at Petco, and probably sooner rather than later, honestly.
Bryce Miller, UT.
Yeah, AJ, coming off the disappointment of 2023, how much pressure did you feel, either internally, externally, personally, coming into the season? And given how much change there was from a payroll perspective and Juan Soto going to the Yankees, was there anything you did differently philosophically that led to any of the success that you had this season?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like, the want to win and the motivation, I could just, speak to myself. I'm like, we have a great group, and like, take this really serious. Like, we love baseball, and love Padre baseball, but it's every year, and I think the fan base sees that. It's like, at the end of the day, you may not agree with every move, or certain things may not work out, but the motivation to go put a winning team on the field, run a best in class organization top to bottom that Peter always talked about. We have a lot of people in this organization that share that. So it's like, again, I think, I talked about it last year, like, personally, like, pretty disappointing, because I think we felt like the roster from the 23 season was super talented, and we didn't get it done. So I don't know about extra motivation, because like every year, like, we're very motivated, and it's one of the best traits of this group is that they're passionate and they love the game of baseball and they want to win. I think, still that disappointment from 23. I think we were very motivated, but we're very motivated to build on the success from this year. So, I can just tell you that personally. And then in terms of like, I've heard that a little bit, like, hey, like, this team, this roster, we've had some really good teams and rosters. I think we're among the, top 5 or 6 franchises now. And I think the marching orders was had in the 2020s, and from really when I first got this job, I've built this thing. So, in the decade of the 20s, we're one of the more successful franchises. And every year we've got a chance to play deep into October. I think now we've won, been one playoff series in 3 of the last 5 years. We want to just build on that, So I think, in terms of like how we're doing it, I think it's just like make good decisions, and how we do that. We just constantly are talking the game, throwing things out there. Best ideas win. We've got a really talented group. I listen to those guys. Nothing's really changed on that front. I know, like, from my standpoint, it's trusting your people, ask a lot of questions, and have some big picture thoughts about what types of players can win and lead to championships. That really hasn't changed over the last 10 years, honestly, and definitely not in the last calendar year or so. Every year is a little different, like how to do that, with your roster. So, this year's version was a good balanced roster. Hopefully we can keep building on that.
Thanks.
Jay Hokim. Jay, how are you there?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, AJ. I just compliment you. Did Hatham have the surgery?
Yeah, Hafsung had the surgery, is labrum surgery. With Dr. Elitraz now, it's probably about 10 days ago or so.
So is there any timeline or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think like Hafsung, like, the labrum surgery, again, like, we've seen it from a few position players, over the time. I know, there's been some talk about, him being able to start a throwing program the beginning part of the season. And again, I think like we got to kind of see how he responds to the surgery and where that goes. Heard some different timelines and time frames. I know from Dr. Elitraz, it sounds like in our medical team that, when we get into the early part of next year, I think some conversation, whether that's May, June, July, but I think, again, like, the big thing with Hafsung, he works hard. He's a good athlete. He's going to put himself in every possible position to come back as soon as possible. But the labrum is a surgery that's going to take some time for him to come back. So, it doesn't sound like he'll be ready for the start of spring training, but We'll have more conversation about exactly when. But I know from Ha-Sung's standpoint, he's going to do everything he can. So hopefully early part of next season, he's able to come back. And that's more of the questions that we've got to get a little bit more into over the next couple of weeks as we start talking more contract and see where that goes with him.
So how did his situation change your approach to him?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like when there's an injury, you always, you got to factor all of that in. So he's got a mutual option. That's kind of the first question after the World Series that we've got to weigh in on is the mutual option. Then he'll have an ability to also, figure out where he stands from that front. And then based on that, then we'll move on to the next steps, So I think the first conversation is that mutual option, whether we want to pick it up as a team and he'll do the same on his front. And then we'll get more information after that, and we'll keep gathering information on the injury standpoint where that leaves him and us. But again, Ha-Sung's very talented player. I think we felt that at the end of the year, not having him here, it definitely was a blow. And he's a guy that he plays the game with a ton of energy. He's an intelligent baseball player. He defends the field really well. He can play all different spots. He can take a walk. He can hit a home run. He can steal a base. Like that's the way we evaluate him, and that's a really talented and valuable player. And again, like I think from our standpoint, we'd love to bring him back. I think we just got to kind of get into it and see where that leads us.
Thank you.
Time for a few more. Just ask that everybody left on this list limits their to one question each. So we'll go to Jake next.
AJ, I know your focus was the product on the field, but when you kind of look back on the NLDS and the series with the Dodgers and all the drama that surrounded it between articles and gamesmanship from the opposing manager, did you just chalk that up as rivalry in playoff baseball, or was there a sense of frustration seeing your team essentially attacked like that?
No, I mean, I think in general, like I think it speaks, just if you take a step back and like kind of look at the game, it's kind of good for the game in terms of, you have two really good teams that now, I think 3 times in the last 5 years have faced each other in the playoffs, and we obviously face them a ton in the regular season, and they're obviously right up the road. So, I think you've got, from what I hear, you look at it sounds like the country was interested. You get, I think somebody said that the top rating in division in the last 7 or 8 years in a division series game, obviously big ratings in Japan. So I think from my standpoint, I look at it more as like, hey, did we, you always want to maintain focus. You want to make sure that you're locked in on like what's at hand. And then from a big picture standpoint, it's good for the game. It's good for the game when you have super talented teams that are competitive and are both trying to be the best team in the game, and creates probably a natural rivalry. And that's, I think, what we saw. Is like competitive, like passionate fan bases, passionate position, player rosters, passionate, coaching staffs, and I think arguably 2 of the best teams in all of baseball, and doing it again for another time, another go around, and I think that's good for baseball, honestly. And I think from us, we'll try to learn from it, and kind of make sure that we're kind of channeling that in the right spot, and we'll go from there with it. So
back to Derek.
Hey, Jay, a lot of the emphasis on scouting is, of course, on the amateur level, but then you find guys like David Peralta, Donovan Solano in the middle of the year, Martin Perez. But how much emphasis is put on scouting veterans, keeping eyes or tabs on guys who are around the league and known commodities that might at some point become available like those guys did this year?
Yeah, I would different aspects. Amateur, pro, and international, or pro scouting group. Pete DeYoung, leads that. Again, he's done a great job. I mean, it's a huge part of it. Like obviously being able to acquire guys at the top end. Like go make a deal like this year for Luis Ariz or for Dylan Cease, guys that Luis wins the batting title. Dylan throws a no hitter, and it's been in some conversation for Cy Young votes, etc. Go get a Michael King, a guy that's kind of ascending in our scouts estimation. And then some of those pieces, like you mentioned, like a Solano, a Profar, David Peralta, Tyler Wade, as a 6-year free agent. There's so many, that's what every baseball ops group tries to do. Again, like I mentioned it before, you got to have really good information and people that live it every single day. Pete and his group does that. And, again, like, you look up and, whether it's a Juan Soto deal, those are kind of the big headliners that everybody talks about. But all of the, like really, when you look at building a roster and, and a team with a 26-man roster, it's really that 40-man roster and into the minor league system. Those are huge parts of our story this year. And honestly, a compliment to Pete and his group that have done it, not just this year, like over the past 10 years, they've done a great job with it. But yeah, I think we saw that come to play, like the depth of the roster and some of those decisions that were made by Pete and his group. So a lot of fun to see that this year.
Dennis Lynn.
AJ, wasn't the greatest year for Xander Bogaerts? How do you evaluate it, factoring in that he did miss time with a shoulder injury, but also weighing the fact that you signed him for a lot of years and a lot of money, and what are your realistic expectations going forward now that he's 32?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think with Xander, it's obviously like getting, playing through the injury, kind of like getting back in the second half of the season. Again, I think the expectation with Xander is, and he'll be the first to tell you, he knows that he's, like I think from his standpoint, he knows he's got a lot of really good baseball in there. And, I think we saw it the second half of the 23 season. Again, like that's all. Again, like part of having a core group of guys, there may be, a year or a period of time or, half a season where guys don't quite perform at the level that they're expecting themselves to perform to. But I think the good news for us is that Xander's coming back and he's going to do everything he can this offseason, knowing him, his personality, his makeup, to come back and be an all-star caliber player. Again, he got us, there were some big hits there, some big home runs, some big, at bats. And I think for us, like to be the team that we need to be next year, it's going to involve Xander right in the middle of it and looking up and having him have a Bogarts type year. And that's a guy that's going to be among the league leaders in average, a guy that, starts to fill up, the doubles and home run side of things. He can play up the middle. We saw that at second base. He got better and better as the year went, the first half went, then he switched over to shortstop. We'll talk to him about that and where that looks. But yeah, if we're going to be, a playoff team next year, my guess is we're having this conversation next year and we look up and Xander, has an all-star type season. And I feel very confident he's capable of doing that. And I feel very confident he's going to look at this year. Part of it was the injury. But I think he's going to look at this year and make some adjustments to make sure that he comes back next year and he's back as one of the top players in the game. And, excited to see that for him.
Take two more. We'll go back to Jeff.
AJ, a lot of the public sentiment was this was kind of your finest year as a general manager, cutting payroll, doing some of the things you were able to do creatively, versus some of the spending sprees you've been on. How would you view that perspective, that working with those parameters maybe forced you to do things differently and perhaps be more just streamline some of the things that you do in building a roster?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think like you mentioned earlier, it's like, every year it's a little bit different, like what the challenges are. So, but in terms of like how we go about doing it, like in the process and like the way I personally go about doing it, like, I don't think a lot changed in terms of this year. Like, yeah, we've got to, because, we cut some payroll or the number was at a different spot. We didn't like drastically change the way we go about making decisions, conversations, evaluations. And again, like I've said it before, like kind of looking at it, it's like, it's never going to be every single year, every decision you make. But I think what we try to talk about as an organization is if, our area scout in the Carolinas is making a good decision, has a good process, 7 out of 10 decisions and he's right 7 out of 10 times if you want to say that. And, our pro scout is doing the same thing and our assistant general manager is doing the same thing over the course of, months and years. Those decisions start adding up and you start seeing that in terms of players and moves and rosters and organizations moving the needle and getting better. So I think that's just what we keep focusing on is each individual decision. Let's make sure we're having good information, making the right calls, and good things happen. So, I think that's what we focus on, Josh Stein, myself, others in the front office. And, again, I think, we've had some good teams here in the last few years. We've also had a couple teams that, there's the expectations are high, and that we need to learn from. So I think we have those experiences. I think we're looking forward to another off season, but I think the process, the way we go about doing it, the way we ask questions, the way we evaluate, the togetherness from the group that has not changed, and I think that's ultimately why you look up and more often than not we're in a better spot, and that's what we're going to try to learn from this year again.
Thanks.
We'll finish up with Higuchi.
Yes, let me ask you about Darvish and Matsui. How do you evaluate their performance this year, and what do you want them to do next year?
Yeah, I think for Darvish, I think again just a lot of I think feel really good about him and the way he ended the season. Obviously, for you try to be there throughout the year, and just be there from a support standpoint for from the organizations. For him, he went through some personal things that he needed to get right. But just, the fact that he was able to do that and then come back and do what he loves, and be able to perform on the field at the end of the season, just really proud of him. He's, one of the best, if not the best pitcher I've seen from Japan, which is saying a lot. And seeing him in those playoff games and against the Dodgers and throw 2 gems on the field and give us a real chance to win, just felt great for him. And he put so much time and effort into it. I think the fans know that and see that, but he really does want to be the best. He's constantly trying to get better and trying to grow and learn. And I'm just really proud of him and excited for him, because I know this year, for him, he went through some stuff that he was able to get right and get on the field and perform, because that's what he loves to do. And I think from Yuki, talk to him, been part of, some players coming from the NPB, and that first year is always an adjustment period. And I thought he did a great job with it. You look at the second half of the season, the walk strikeout, he got better as the year went on for me. He was a guy, I think, second on our team in appearances, right about that. So again, I think for him, he's going to grow and build off of this year. He's very smart. He's, again, somebody that puts a ton of attention to detail. He's going to go home, go back to Japan, and then come back to San Diego, and he's going to be better for this experience. But I think in general, first year in the league, a lot of new things, not closing, pitching, different role. I think he, overall was a success for him this year, and now it's going to be go build on that, and I have a lot of faith he will.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for joining our call today. We appreciate it. And thank you, AJ, for your time. We'll see you all very soon. Have a good day.
AJ Preller, determined, cryptic, doing what he does in most press conferences, which is to, give you the general lay of the land for the organization without offering any specific details, which, he's not going to have at this point in the winter anyway, Annie. So, this is usually just kind of a post-mortem. I appreciated some of the questions more toward the history of what just happened and to the season that went by, as opposed to what are you going to do with this? What are you going to do with that? Because his answer every time is the same. Well, we're going to talk about it, and we'll talk about it in a couple weeks, and we'll figure it out. Yeah, and right now, you kind of have that expectation because the World Series isn't even over, and players haven't even necessarily hit free agency, right? It hasn't opened up, and they have the GM meetings, then they'll have the winter meetings. So I think for a lot of those questions, although they do need to be asked and answered, and I think it's always good to get answers on record, but a lot of it is going to need to be determined kind of by action, right? And what gets done, and being able to question some of those decisions or things that do or don't happen over the course of the offseason and then into spring training. I thought that, it's kind of beyond that. It's kind of like what you would expect, like you said, at this point in the year, and they're very cagey anyways in terms of not giving away too much. Yeah, he didn't take the bait when he was asked about the Dodgers. He reiterated something that we've tried to reiterate when he was asked about the team's lack of offense at the end of the playoff, which is that 2 games is 2 games. It's 2 baseball games. So when a guy goes 0 for 8 in 2 games in July, it's 0 for 8. When he goes 0 for 8 in 2 games in October, he is a non-clutch player who can't come through, can't meet the moment, must be gone, got to get rid of him, got to trade him, got to cut him. And it's obviously unfair. It's critically unfair. And,
Very unfair.
And he noted that. Yeah. It's not the case. And you can look at a number of guys that have made it
even deeper into the postseason on different teams. And, it's not always the hero players that you think it's going to be. And sometimes it's not the other ones. I mean, it just depends series to series. It changes also. And had the Padres gone farther, you would have seen more guys been able to have some of those moments, but it's just the nature of the beast in the playoffs. I thought that it was good to kind of get his perspective on that, though. How does the club see it internally in terms of what they were or weren't able to do? But I agree with you. It's very hard to pin any big judgments on what happened in those two games, except that they just went cold. I mean, it was just a bad time to go cold. And if you're the team, if you're the Padres, I think Preller is right. You do need to look at, is there any stone not being turned over? And is there anything we could take from this and learn for next year, or learn if we're in a different position? That's definitely what they need to be doing. But on the other side of it, you also understand what he's saying in the sense of it's hard to make any big assumptions based on that.
Right. And as always with Preller, you have to listen to the negative spaces. You have to listen to what's unsaid. Sometimes when he says something, then take the other side and recognize that might be what he's thinking. So, for example, he talked about when discussing the offense, we're better when we move the line. We're better when we use the big part of the ballpark.
Yes.
And implicit in that is the admission that that's not what they did in the final 3 games of the season, that they got away from that. He didn't say that they got away from that, but by saying this is what we do when we're good, when he was asked about not scoring, that kind of gives you the context clue that he felt like the team got a little bit away from its formula at the end as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's good to hear him say that. I mean, it's true, right? We all kind of saw it as well. And now were they, in terms of what the pitchers were giving them, and in terms of maybe what, who knows, was there too much hero ball maybe trying to be played and not enough move the line? And then also, what were they seeing from the pitchers, and kind of what were their opportunities there that may or may not have been missed? I mean, there was also good pitching in that series. So I think it's all good to look at. It's all good to assess. His comment about the coaching staff and Mike Schilt kind of made me think, they might not get Mike Schilt done over the offseason, but Mike Schilt might say, look, it's more important to go and get some of these other things done right now in terms of other coaches coming back or maybe other players, and we'll worry about me, in the future, or maybe even midway through next year, beginning of next year, who knows? But it's so hard to tell. I mean, this was, again, last year, this was the time when the press conference went as if Bob Melvin was returning, and then he didn't. So,
right.
And some of this, I don't think AJ Preller does know. I don't think he has a clear answer yet on exactly what is happening. Some of it is not completely up to him. It's going to be up to finances and things like that. So I think that on some of it, he just is also kind of has to wait and see. There's another party on the other side that also has to accept offers or say, this isn't enough for me or whatever, or agents that have to do that. So I can understand where he's coming from there. To use the word responsibly, I don't think is a shocker if you've been listening. This is kind of where they're at. The days of spending as much as they were in past years probably are gone. So does that mean they'll go over the luxury tax? Does that mean that door is completely closed? I don't know. But I think responsibly was an indication that they're not necessarily going to just be a $260 million Padres team for years to come.
Yeah, but he did say that they are open. And
they are open,
I mean,
yeah.
Look, it's the same thing he says every year. So I recognize that, and I just want to make sure you understand, listening to me, that I do recognize that. But when he says, basically, if the right guy comes along, we're open, that is different from what we had reported at the end of last year, which, of course, Preller wouldn't say. But, so here's how I would put it, Annie. If tomorrow those quotes are immediately followed in Kevin or Dennis's story with, actually, sources say there's no way that they're going to go over the cap, then that's going to be what the reality of the situation is. But what Preller is indicating with his words is an openness to, hey, if the right big name free agent comes along and it fits, we're going to go that direction. Or if we don't see that the market goes that way, we'll do something else. But they do make it very clear their intent is to win, be successful, and put a playoff team on the field next year.
Yeah, and I think that they'll still have a competitive payroll. I don't think it's going to be the bottom of the league. It might not be the top 5, but I still think that they're going to be putting themselves in a position to make the moves they need to make, and also give themselves a chance to go after some of these guys. Maybe not all of them, but you don't necessarily need all of them. Some of the guys that are going to make the biggest difference for them that might be a little bit more costly. So yeah, being open to that is a good thing, and we'll see what happens and kind of how the money shakes out. But as long as it's a competitive payroll that gives them a chance to be in the race, I think they're in a pretty good spot.
Wound up being a commercial-free hour of Preller press conference for you, which means right now I'm going to go grab our pizza. Is there pizza?
This was not a Preller
There's
round
no,
table.
There's no pizza?
No, this is not a
There's no
commercial-free
pizza?
round table. No.
All right, we'll still do the 12 o'clock sports fix after this timeout, but I'm under protest. And we'll get your reaction to Preller, too, right after this. Back with you for the lunch hour on Monday. Sun shining over America's finest city. And your midday hang is in mid-show form. It is Annie and Elsten here with you on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. We hope you enjoyed A.J. Preller's press conference, which we took live and commercial-free. Of course, that eliminated our 11 a.m. hour. No problem for us.
I enjoyed hearing from A.J. Preller.
Yeah, no, it was, yeah, no.
Yeah, no.
No, yeah, yeah. Again, it was good. Again, it was a good press conference. Again, it was very good. So, again, we'll bring you all the sports news from the weekend that was. It's time to get you all fixed up. Here we go with all your sports news for October 21st, 2024. Your 12 o'clock sports fix on Annie and Elsten. And Annie gets you started with a World Series matchup in Big League Baseball.
All righty. For the first time in 15 years, the Yankees are headed back to the World Series. Juan Soto played the hero on Saturday, delivering a 2-out, 3-run home run in the top of the 10th inning to send the Yankees to a 5-2 win over the Guardians at Progressive Field that secured the American League pennant and punched their ticket to the Fall Classic. They will be playing the Dodgers, who beat the Mets 10-5 in Game 5 of the NLCS. Tommy Edman and Will Smith homered, sending, as ESPN put it, Shohei Ohtani to the World Series for the first time in his career. Game 1 is Friday at Dodger Stadium, pitting Aaron Judge against Ohtani, MLB's top home run hitters this season. It'll be the 12th time the storied franchises meet in the World Series, and the first in 43 years. Is that right? And the first in, okay. The 12th time the storied franchise, I'll check on that.
Yeah.
That's right.
1981.
Oh, gosh, it seems like the
1981.
Math. Yeah, it was. Wow.
43 years.
Because we're in 2024.
Yeah.
Yep, that's
I
the
was
year.
9.
Crazy. 43 years.
Now I'm 52.
It just seems like it wasn't that
God, I'm
long,
old.
but it's kind of a long time ago.
We've had a bad realization of how old some
Yes.
people are on the show.
The Red Sox are nearing a deal to hire Taylor Smith for an unspecified analytics-based role in the club's front office. Who is Taylor Smith, you're asking?
Taylor Swift?
Not. Maybe that's why I like this story. Also, there's just not a lot of Major League Baseball stories going on right now besides the World Series, but maybe I was in my head thinking Taylor Swift. Yes, she will be letting the haters hate, as Taylor Smith could join the ranks as assistant general manager of the Red Sox, which would presumably also come with some type of VP title, like Boston's other four assistant GMs under Chief Baseball Officer Craig Breslow. Smith had been working with the Rays as Tampa Bay's Director of Predictive Modeling. How about that title?
Predictive
Director
modeling?
of Predictive. Hey, I'm the Director of Predictive Modeling.
This is not what my model predicted.
He has never predicted a World Series to the Rays.
Wouldn't it be cool if you walked into his office and he had the orb? Like
Right.
Like that's how he predicted.
Just like every time you come in and you say, hey, did you know? Yes, I already knew.
He's got the sports almanac.
I am the director of
He's turning
predictions.
over his like baseball cards and like making them, like what's the thing where you like
Is that Doc Brown locked in a clay cage? in
Like
your
tarot
closet?
cards? Are you talking about tarot cards, but it's
like
baseball cards?
Baseball cards, right?
This is their predictive modeling? Is they use tarot cards as baseball cards?
Yes.
Who knew?
As the Giants continue their search for a new, that is what it is in my head. As
Oh,
the Giants
okay,
continue
got
their
it.
search for a new GM to take over for Pete Putila, sure, and serve as Buster Posey's second in command. Now that he is president of baseball operations, The Athletic reports that one name under consideration has withdrawn himself from the mix for the job. Royals assistant GM Scott Sharp, who is removing himself from the pool of candidates due to family considerations. He serves as senior vice president and assistant GM for Kansas City. So all of you out there who are wondering who might be Buster Posey's GM, it's not going to be him.
Sharp money going
Yes,
elsewhere.
You can rest assured tonight it will not be Scott Sharp.
I will sleep easier.
You will sleep easier. That's
Yeah,
right.
Let's keep me up the last couple of days.
That is all from the baseball front, at least at this point.
All right.
All right, Braden, which portion of the football would you like to discuss now?
They'll do the high school and college football. Had a lot of great games over the weekend. Lincoln was able to knock off Cathedral on Friday.
First time this has been brought up.
Granite Hills dismantle. They beat Mount Miguel by 15. University City took their first loss to Scripture Ranch, who has probably punched their ticket as a Division I team. And Mission Hills and La Costa Canyon comes down to the final play of the game, as called on your view. La Costa Canyon with like 26 seconds left, scored to tie the game up at 27, extra point, won the game to keep their undefeated season alive.
That's
as
a fun game.
Everything stands right now or at least on calpreps.com, and there are some, there's some new bulletin put out by CIF, which I can't believe that they're doing this in terms of head-to-head tiebreaker and seedings and stuff like that, which I will get into tonight on America's Finest Football Show.
Tune in.
For some high school football talk, because there's a lot of conversation about it. But as it stands right now, unless an ultimate collapse, but not even, I think based on the points, I think you're looking at your 4 teams in the open division. You will have Lincoln as the number 1 seed. You will have La Costa Canyon and Cathedral as a 2-3, depending on how outcomes of their next 2 games go. But more likely it will be LCC the 2, Cathedral the 3, and Mission Hills will be the 4 seed, which raises some eyebrows because Granite Hills as the 5 beat Mission Hills head-to-head. And in the rating system, they flip the 2 teams if they're next to each other and the lower team beat the higher team in the rankings head-to-head. But CIF announced that since they're seeding everybody 1 through 87, whatever it is, and determining the divisions, you cannot jump divisions if you're the number 1 in Division I going to the number 4 spot in the open. So what that means is they're going to seed everybody, and since Mission Hills is currently seeded as the 4, they cut the division off, which means Granite, even though they beat Mission Hills, would get stuck in Division I instead of being in the open. They just announced that this weekend. I was like, wouldn't that be information you would have put out before the season started?
Right.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just seed everybody? Or like everybody gets ranked by CalPreps, then do your head-to-head flips, and then set the divisions. I don't know why. I feel like the order of operations are a little backwards on this.
You should put a suggestion into the
It's like
suggestion
doing the
box for
division
next
before
year.
the addition.
Yes.
Yes.
100%. And you're getting a different result. So if I'm Granite Hills, I'm very upset by this. Latest bulletin that they put out, again, this weekend about this particular instance. The order of operations are incorrect. I will have full context of that tonight at 10 o'clock. If you miss it, it's in podcast form wherever you get your podcast.
I don't blame Granite Hills though. I mean, that's
right. You beat the team head to head.
yeah.
Like they're right there in the. If you look at the rankings, Mission Hills is number 4 and Granite's number 5. Granite has the head to head over Mission Hills. They should be able to flip flop. But since they're just going 1 through 80 and then setting the divisions, they're going to say that since Mission Hills is the 4. Rope off the division so Granite becomes the 1 instead in Division 1. And I know Granite would probably rather be in the open just because that's the program they are. But like, it's kind of interesting that just got pulled out right now over the weekend and not something that was addressed in the preseason bulletin. I digress on that. Is today Black Monday? Because almost everybody in college football got fired over the weekend. I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous how many coaches got fired this weekend. I can't even get into the details of all of them, but East Carolina fired their head coach amid a 3-4 start. Coastal Carolina fired their offensive coordinator. Southern Miss fired their head coach after he started his tenure 14-30. Sooners of Oklahoma fired their offensive coordinator. Utah Utes' offensive coordinator stepped down, and they had named an interim offensive coordinator. And then the Wolverines won't commit to a starting quarterback. Black Monday today. I mean, just everybody's getting fired midway through the season because of the results of some college football games at this point in time. That's a tough way to start the week, obviously. Yes. Last thing in college football news, we got a new AP Top 25. Oregon, 59 first-place votes, will be the number 1 team in the country this week at a perfect 7-0. Georgia jumps to number 2 after beating the number 1 team in the country on the road last week and beating them soundly against the Texas Longhorns. They got 2 first-place votes. They passed Penn State, who was undefeated. Guess nobody cares about Penn State at that point. Oregon, number 1 in the country at 7-0. Georgia 2, 6-1. Penn State 3. Ohio State 4. Texas 5. Miami 6. Tennessee 7, who beat Alabama and took down the field goals again. LSU 8. Clemson 9. Iowa State 10 in the top 15. BYU, Notre Dame, Indiana, Texas A&M, Alabama. Alabama now drops to 15 at 5-2. Kansas State, Boise State, Ole Miss, Pitt, and Illinois in the top 20, top 25. How about this? Missouri, SMU, fine. 23 is Army, 24 is Navy, and 25 is Vanderbilt.
Wow.
What year is this? What is going on in college athletics?
This is somebody's video game, right?
Yes,
Because
100%.
Yeah.
This is
it's the only way that would happen.
These are the rankings that came out during when NCAA 25 came out, the video game, and people were like, this game's not realistic. There's no way these schools should be ranked at this spot. Well, guess what? It's October 21st. Army, Navy are both undefeated, and Vanderbilt at 5-2 is the 25th team in the country. How about that? Anyone else loving the fact that Army and Navy are undefeated? This is great.
It's good.
This is
I think
awesome.
it's great,
Keep it going.
yeah.
I think it's great. You know
Keep it
what's
rolling.
great for college football? Army and Navy being undefeated. You know what's not great for Major League Baseball? Dodgers and Yankees in the World Series. But I digress.
Yeah.
I got some NFL news, too. A lot of injury reports.
But
After
first,
Craig.
all the other sports in the world. Here we go. We start with our local teams. San Diego Gulls had their home opener on Friday night. Sellout crowd, Pechanga Arena, taking on Coachella Valley Firebirds. Trailed 6-1 after 2 periods. Don't think much of that crowd saw the comeback. Gulls did rally for 4 goals in the 3rd period, made it interesting. Still lost.
That's insane, though.
6-5.
Yeah, you would
goals
think
in the
6-1, it's done. It's
Yeah,
a wrap.
it's over. I mean, I would have walked out.
I appreciate the
Not
comeback
enough,
for sure.
not enough dollar beers for me to hang through that one.
Yeah, I would have walked out too. But 6-5, which was a sign that maybe the Gulls were starting to turn things around. That loss sent the team to 0-3 on the season, but they bounced back last night and got their first win in Bakersfield.
Congrats.
A 3-2 overtime win. Igor Sidorov scored his first 2 AHL goals, including the winner in overtime. Sidorov. San Diego Wave FC played Saturday morning on the road in Kansas City, lost horribly 4-1. That finally and officially puts the last nail in the coffin. The Wave are 5-13-7 on the season. 25 matches, 5 wins.
Wow.
It's just not going to do it for
It's
you.
not a season you want to remember,
No.
except to learn from and never want to taste that again.
Yeah. Lost your head coach, lost your franchise player, lawsuit, accusations, 5 wins in 25
And
matches.
sometimes if you can have a rough start to the season, but you can turn it around but it didn't happen. Sometimes that can help with a little bit of the sting, but that didn't happen either.
Got CONCACAF out of the Champions Cup. Very, very, very.
It was a trying season for them.
That is a great way to put it.
The first really for them since they came to San Diego,
Yeah.
right?
Everything else has been just nonstop A's. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden this term paper turns up.
Something new, right?
The WNBA Finals concluded last night. The best in the history of the sport. We've got a great quote that we'll play you later in the show. Right now, just the news because we're a little behind. 5-game series goes to Game 5. Game 5 goes to overtime. First time in the history of the league. In the end, the host team, the New York Liberty, held off the Minnesota Lynx 67-62. First title in the 28-year history of the Liberty, one of the original WNBA franchises. Now, the Lynx, who were in search of their 5th title, their head coach and president, Cheryl Reeve, was extremely upset over what she and the club felt was not only a critical no call in the final seconds. She thought it was a no call. It was called a foul that let the Liberty tie it up in the final seconds of regulation and force overtime. We will play a clip later in which she just probably has the saltiest post-championship press conference I've ever heard. Nonetheless, it was very controversial. A lot of the NBA world is talking about it today, saying that it was not only not a foul, but that New York's Breanna Stewart actually traveled before the foul was called.
Oh, wow.
So big yikes, but big ratings and a big win for New York Liberty, WNBA original franchise. WNBA now done. Till next year.
Season over.
NBA opening night tomorrow night. Very exciting. On the day of rookie extension deadlines, the New Orleans Pelicans have locked down one of their stars, according to now ESPN's Shams Charania. Trey Murphy III and the Pels have agreed on a 4-year, $112 million contract extension that will kick in 2025. Bucks forward Chris Middleton will miss the Bucks season opener on Wednesday against the 76ers, again, according to Shams. He is still recovering from a pair of arthroscopic ankle surgeries from the off season. Now we go to the NHL, where last night it was the LA Kings coming from way behind to beat the Anaheim Ducks, scoring 4 goals in the third period. Well, 4-1 was the score, so not way behind. 1-0 behind, but 4-1 final. Kings beat the Ducks. Avalanche over the Sharks, 4-1. Jets doubled through the Penguins, 6-3 today. Just one game on the ice. Lightning versus Maple Leafs. And in Vegas, JT Poston used a burst of birdies, built himself a comfortable lead, and held on for a 4-under-67 and a one-shot victory Sunday in the Shriners Children's Open, played at TMC Somerville. The 31-year-old Poston, who missed most of the year for his child, his newly born daughter, missed most of the season, but still, with this win, qualifies for top 50 in FedEx Cup standings, which means he gets to go to all those $20 million events next year, plus a trip to the Masters for the 3rd straight season. There you go with your panoply of sports. Back to the NFL and Braden.
NFL news. Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa will return to practice this week after missing the team's past 4 games, according to head coach Mike McDaniel on Monday. Tua was placed on injured reserve after he was diagnosed with a concussion in week 2, the 3rd diagnosed concussion of his NFL career. In his absence this season, the Dolphins lost 3 of their 4 games and are 2.5 games behind the AFC East leading Buffalo Bills with a 2-4 record. McDaniel said medical experts have deemed it safe for Tua to return.
Oh, super safe. Like, absolutely. The safest thing in the world, just like a walk in the park.
Barring any setbacks.
Yeah, no problem.
Tua and the Dolphins are aiming for him to play
setbacks.
Sunday against the Cardinals.
Could that be like if someone tackled him? Could that be a setback?
Slamming his head on the turf.
If he was tackled in the game?
True. Most of those concussion injuries are mostly just heads hitting the floor, too.
Yeah.
Which is a big reason why I'm anti-turf and all about natural grass, but I digress on that statement. The medical experts, I think, paid for by the NFL. Remember, if the NFL deemed that he cannot play, he can retire and get his full contract.
Correct.
Right.
So the NFL is not going to
we know
do
that
any
he was
deeming. There will be no deeming.
Yes, exactly. So expected to play next week. Deshaun Watson has ruptured his Achilles. MRI revealed that Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson has season-ending ruptured right Achilles tendon. The team announced Monday. Coach Kevin Stefanski said after his team's 21-14 loss to the Bengals on Sunday that it appeared Watson had suffered a season-ending injury. Stefanski said Monday that Watson will have surgery this week. He was unaware of the exact type of procedure Watson will undergo. After the Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers ruptured his Achilles in the 2023 season opener, he underwent a speed bridge repair that allowed him to return to practice 11 weeks later. By the spring, Rodgers was cleared to practice with no restrictions. We feel bad for Deshaun, Stefanski said. In this case, we feel bad to lose him for the season. We also know as a football team, this is where you have to step up. Guys have to step up, and that's just how it goes. Browns will lose Watson for the year. Jared Mayo had a lot of things to say about his New England Patriots, revisited his comments about New England Patriots as a, quote, soft football team across the board on Monday, saying he believes the players have what it takes to turn things around. I felt like we just went out there and played soft. We're playing soft at the moment, Mayo said about his remarks following the team's 32-16 loss to the Jags at Wembley Stadium. Now, in saying that, do I think we have the guys that can be in here and turn the ship around? 100%, but that comes through hard work and getting better each and every day. But he did call them soft. Says Patriots are soft. So take that for what it is. So multiple injury news for you in the NFL. Coaches calling their team soft.
Shots fired.
Yeah, they didn't really work out for Antonio Pierce either, but the Patriots aren't playing. I mean, the coach said they're not very good. They're soft. Jets failed to spark as Rodgers admits that the energy was flat. So it's not the only team that is deemed soft.
It's never a good sign when they're
right
like,
now.
the energy was flat. means we didn't come to play today.
We didn't come ready to go.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Raiders O'Connell will miss 4 to 6 weeks. So the Gardner Minshew show continues in the National Football League.
And there's your 12 o'clock sports fix for October 21st, 2024. When we come back, we got plenty to get to, including overreactions from the NFL weekend that was on Braden's football segment. And we've still got Mind the Gap to come when we play silly games later in the hour with concert tickets on the line. Social Distortion.
That's right.
At the Observatory.
D.
All right. December 22nd, kind of a Christmas concert with Social D.
That seems like a good venue to see Social D.
That would be a great venue to see Social Distortion. So we'll be doing that later in the hour as well. Stay right there, friends. It's Annie and Elsten, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Baseball coverage on 97.3 The Fan is presented by T-Mobile. Head to T-Mobile.com. Get a great deal on an iPhone 16 Pro. Okay, let's get to Braden's football segment. I feel like with the A.J. Preller press conference, the whole show has been truncated a little bit, so trying to keep the trains moving on time. Let's get to the NFL weekend that was and some overreactions, underreactions, properly measured out reactions, all the reactions with Braden.
They're all overreactions, and you're going to buy it or you're going to sell it. And that's what we're going to go with the major overreactions of what week are we in now? 7? That was week 7?
Yes, that was week 7.
All right, week 8. We got a Lions overreaction. We got a Giants overreaction. We got a Bills overreaction. We got a Saints overreaction. And by the way, got a bonus one this week. According to Dan Graziano, a Packers overreaction. So let's rip through it as quickly as possible. One of the big stories of the week was how Detroit would handle the loss of Aiden Hutchinson, its star edge rusher who fractured his left tibia and fibula in the Lions' Week 6 victory, something that Annie had also done in her life.
That's right.
Back in Dallas, possibly the best player on one of the league's most loaded rosters. Hutchinson is also a heart and soul type player on the Detroit defense. Michigan guy, grew up in Michigan's hometown club. Lions have already made calls about potential trades for edge rushers, and they'll continue to be a team to watch ahead of the November 5th trade deadline. But in the meantime, they needed to go into a hostile environment Sunday and win a game against an undefeated division rival coming off its bye week, and they did. Lions and Vikings share the NFC's best record, and through Sunday's early window, the Lions held the conference's top point differential by 1 point over the Vikings. Buy or sell, the Lions are the best team in the NFC, even without Aiden Hutchinson. I will buy that.
I buy it.
Our beloved Lions.
Our beloved Lions.
Our Applebee's Lions.
You buying it?
I buy it.
I buy it. I even all biases aside of us picking them to be our favorite team of the show.
They're a good team.
They're the best team right now in the NFC.
And they're good on defense. They're good on offense. They're good on special teams. Like they have a good coach. They're a good team.
The NFC is not very good in general. I think the best two teams in the NFC played each other yesterday, and it was a hell of a game. And you might see that matchup again. Well, you're going to see it again when they play in Detroit, but you're also going to see it probably one more time in the postseason.
I think you will. Of course, the Niners have been such a disappointment. But
that's what happens when you don't have Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk's down now. And
Ayuk.
What do you think Scraby's mood's going to be today?
Grouchy.
Not very good.
Yeah, we agree.
In this season's easiest to see coming revenge game, former Giants running back Saquon Barkley rolled into MetLife Stadium in Eagles green and rushed for 176 yards, touchdown on 17 carries, dominant 28-3 victory for the Eagles, E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles. His day featured individual runs of 55, 41, and 38, and per ESPN stats and research, his 176 rushing yards ranked second in NFL history for any player in a game against his former team. Cincinnati's Cedric Benson had 189 yards against the Bears in 2009. Barkley looked like a man living his best life playing against his old team for a division rival with a better offensive line supporting cast than he's ever had in his 6 seasons with the Giants. Consider that Barkley had 187 yards from scrimmage alone, while the Giants combined for 119 total yards. Giants had 119 total yards. Saquon Barkley had 187 total yards. Buy or sell, Giants made a huge mistake letting Saquon Barkley leave to sign with the Eagles.
To sign with the Eagles, they didn't have the choice. They didn't guide him to Philadelphia, right? They just let him go.
Is it a huge mistake that they let him go at his age for a running back?
I don't think it's a huge mistake.
I think it's a mistake.
I don't.
Oh, whatever.
I got no problem with them letting him go. Obviously, he's going to burn them with the Eagles this year, but then 2 years from now, it could look like a great move.
He's running backs.
Right,
they don't age well, right? I mean, you only got so many
bullets.
Out
of the league in general, but
it's a brutal job to have. He's already had multiple knee injuries in his career. The amount of money it would take to keep him would have made that team even worse. I understand losing your best player in your team is probably not ideal, but at the same time, it's probably the wiser decision to be like, we already spent the money on Daniel Jones. Now that's a different conversation.
Because where are they without him though?
I mean, they're the same spot they were with him. They're awful.
Yeah, terrible.
They spent all their money on Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
They made a previous bad mistake, and now they can't overcome it with by making new bad mistakes by spending the money. So They got to try to surround Daniel Jones with talent, and that's what you get.
Saquon is living his best life. So
Yeah, good for Saquon.
That is what I took away from that.
100%. Two high-profile wideouts were traded last week. Devontae Adams to the Jets, where he reunites with old friend Aaron Rodgers, and Amari Cooper to the Bills, where he gives Josh Allen the number one receiver he no longer had once Buffalo traded Stephon Diggs to Houston in the offseason. Cooper's first catch as a Bill was a touchdown, which is really cool to introduce yourself to a new city, especially a city like Buffalo. Yeah. He ended up with 66 yards and 4 catches in Buffalo's 34-10 victory over the Titans. Adams' Jets played the Steelers last night in Pittsburgh. Did all right, but not as great as Amari Cooper. Buy or sell Amari Cooper trade will have a greater impact than the Devontae Adams trade.
I buy that. Yeah.
I buy it too.
100 times over.
Didn't he get thrown the first ball of the game, the first Devontae Adams, and didn't catch it?
I think so.
But anyways, yeah, reunited with Aaron Rodgers. Should not take long for the two of them to be feeling comfortable again, but I don't think that it's going to be as big of an impact as with the Bills.
Even
the
though
Bills
Amari
are a better
Cooper
team.
overreacting to each of their first catches is obviously one thing, but at the same time,
66 yards, whatever. But like, just the Bills, I think will have a better.
The Jets are about to have everybody get
outcome.
fired over there anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, they're miserable, and they were miserable again last night. I mean, it's just some drops. Steelers outplayed them the whole time. Maybe it wasn't Aaron Rodgers. Maybe it's just the Jets. The Jets do Jet things. The Jets could add a lot more players, and still wouldn't matter.
Did you just talk about
Jets
a franchise?
The new Browns?
Yeah, you just talked about a Giants franchise that made a mistake spending money on the quarterback they shouldn't have, and then they wind up with, other problems as a result. The Jets spent a lot of money on a quarterback that they shouldn't have.
Yes.
And he also turns out to be a completely egotistical hypocrite in addition to everything else. And so he demanded that his vanity project be forwarded through, which was to bring Devontae Adams, and it's going to have no bearing on the New York Jets season as he continues to be sacked and his offensive line continues to be mediocre, and as the Jets continue to drop toward a non-playoff appearance and a losing record once again.
And he blames it on Mike Williams. Okay, Aaron, the last thing you want to do is I get it. Mike Williams drops some balls and isn't perfect, right? But he's a good receiver. And and to kind of just turn it on your receivers this week 7, still kind of early in the season, I don't think that's the right move.
They're a Randall Cobb away from making this thing interesting.
Yeah.
Let's just bring back the Packers again. Which, by the way, he never won a Super Bowl with that crew anyway. He won a Super Bowl early on and then has never seen it since. Saints. Week 7 began with a completely decimated Saints team getting crushed at home by the Broncos and former head coach Sean Payton on Thursday night. After 2 weeks, New Orleans was the talk of the league at 2-0, and with an offense that couldn't be stopped. Since then, the Saints have now lost 5 in a row. Good thing we didn't pick them to be our team. And while their offense is incredibly banged up and was playing this game without its starting quarterback, its 2 top receivers, both San Diego kids, Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, the defense has been unable to stop anyone lately. Denver had almost 250 yards in the first half, finished the game with 389, including 225 on the ground. A Broncos team is not very good. Saints aren't very good at anything right now. Buy or sell. Dennis Allen is going to be the next head coach to lose his job.
Is there any pressure on this team, though? I mean, once they get completely sunk, I guess you could let him go, but
I don't know what it does
to let him go at this
to
point.
let him go and your entire team's hurt.
Right.
You look good when they were all there.
For that reason.
And now they're all gone, and now you stink. And you're like, well, I wonder what happens, right? Like, if the Padres lost their top, if they lost Machado, Tatis, and Merrill at any point this year, and they started a tank, would you want to fire Mike Schilt? I'm sure some fans would. But
hey, the chat has already recommended his firing at least 5 times during the Preller press conference, so I've seen it. Hey, the team didn't hit. Fire Schilt.
I'm selling
okay.
Dennis Allen thing.
Yeah, nah.
Have the Green Bay Packers finally found the defense they need to support their offense? Bonus reaction.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's working for them right now.
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if time will tell, right? But yeah.
Sell. They've had an inordinate number of takeaways in their first 6 weeks. Almost 3 takeaways per game. That is unsustainable. As soon as the luck of getting a whole bunch of turnovers fades, they will no longer have the championship defense. It's the dead hand of statistics rising up to crush them.
Keeping the mean.
Mhm.
That is your overreactions for
All
week
right.
7.
We did it. Let's take a time out. When we come back, it's time to give away a pair of concert tickets to see Social Distortion at the Observatory North Park on December 22nd. We rotate our 4 silly games every week. Each week, one of the 4 winds up getting used Monday and Friday. And the role of the rotation makes Mind the Gap this week, a 2 Mind the Gap week show. So your game of multi-generational trivia, Mind the Gap, is next, where you need to have the ability to answer a question that an 80-year-old would know and maybe a 10-year-old would know as well. And if you can do it better than me, you will win concert tickets. But we need 2 people to call in at 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973, because we need one person to play the game, and then we need one person to just sit back and enjoy listening to the game and to root for me. Because the contestant will win if they beat me, but if I win, the avatar will win the tickets. So we need a contestant and an avatar at 833-288-0973, and we'll come back and play silly games next on The Fan. All right, it's Silly Games time. 12:47 is the time on Annie and Elsten. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Annie Halburn, Craig Elsten, Braden Soprano. We play 4 different silly games. We rotate them through this slot every week. The third segment, 12 o'clock hour. Today's silly game is the game of multi-generational trivia, Mind the Gap. We've got a contestant on the line. We also have an avatar on the line who will be rooting for me. Let's start off by meeting today's contestant. That's Michelle in Oceanside. Hello, Michelle. Welcome to the game.
Hi, thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Michelle, before we play.
I just got done working, so I'm ready to go, and I want to see some Social D. So
nice.
Thought
Love
I'd
it.
call and hang out with you guys.
Well, all you got to do is take me down, Michelle, and those tickets are yours. However, if I am so lucky and fortunate to win today's silly game, then Aaron in Pacific Beach will go to the game or go to the concert instead of Michelle in Oceanside. So, Aaron, you stay there on the line and just root for me. Michelle, I like your chances today. I took a, I took a Sudafed this morning. It always turns my mind into just complete mush. I tried to say concert. I couldn't even think of the word concert earlier. So I think you've got a great shot. But here's how it's going to go either way. We've got 4 buckets of trivia, okay, Michelle? We've got Boomer, we got Generation X, we got Millennial, and we got Gen Z. There's subcategories within that, but essentially those generations of trivia. You're going to get to go first, and then we will alternate. You'll pick one of those categories. If you get the question right, boom, you've eliminated the category. If you get it wrong and I haven't cleared that category, I do have the chance to steal. Just like if I get one wrong, you have the chance to steal if you haven't cleared it. The only other rule you need to know, Michelle, is that you have 2 lifelines in this game. One time you can ask Annie for help. One time you can ask Braden for help. They're usually quite good at letting you know when they actually do know the answer to the question. So with that advantage in your back pocket, are you ready to play?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, Michelle, you get to go first. Boomer, Generation X, Millennial, or Gen Z? Where do you want to go?
Millennial.
All right, let's go Millennial. Any particular category? TV and film, pop culture, music, headlines, or slang?
Wait, what?
Any particular category you would like? TV and film, pop culture, music, headlines, or slang?
Pop culture, I guess.
All right, pop culture it is.
Let's go, Michelle.
This fast casual Mexican food restaurant opened in Denver in 1993, offering food with integrity, naturally raised and organically grown. I know this answer.
Oh, you could call him Braden if you don't know it.
Braden says he knows.
Okay.
All right, lifeline being used. That would be Chipotle.
That's what I was
I
thinking.
did not know that. That started in Denver.
Chipotle started in
Chipotle.
Denver.
Wow.
That is correct.
All those buzzwords made
Good
me
job,
know it was
Michelle.
Chipotle.
Yeah, it's
but
very, very Chipotle.
I didn't know the
of them.
Denver
Food with
part.
integrity?
Yeah, the integrity.
Although putting brisket in a burrito now is not really.
Like, oh, you mean a $12 burrito? Got it.
Pan mashed avocado guacamole.
You mean the burrito that's way smaller now and way more expensive?
All right, 1 lifeline down, but 1 category down. Michelle, I've got the whole board in front of me, and I will start with my home generation, Gen X.
What commercial had cats singing for their food?
Meow Mix.
Meow Mix is correct.
Got it.
Oh my god.
Guy was on that fast.
Yeah, he was
Meow,
like,
meow, meow.
got that one down. Yeah.
I remember the commercial.
I bet you Felix the cat
Shout out
in the
to Felix
group
the cat.
in the chat would be probably got that one right.
Michelle, we're tied at 1 apiece. You've got Boomer, Gen X, or Gen Z left to clear.
All right, Gen Z.
Going for the kiddies.
Want to keep the same category or mix it up?
Oh, I mixed it up.
All right, TV and film. What actor starred in the biops of Marshall, 42, and Get On Up?
What?
Lifeline. Annie.
What was the question?
I didn't even understand
What
the question.
actor starred in the biopics of Marshall, 42, and Get On Up? Who's the main star?
Oh.
I think is he deceased now?
He is.
It, Chadwick Boseman.
That is
Chadwick
correct.
Okay.
Chadwick Boseman.
Chadwick Boseman.
Now, Michelle, you've used both of your lifelines, so we are
Yeah.
unavailable to you from this point
However,
forward.
you have cleared half the board
Yes.
using them,
Yes.
so that's a pretty good job by you.
Count it.
All right, let me be strategic and go millennial here.
On this television show, style expert Stacey London and Clinton Kelly took nominations by family members for fashion disasters in need of a makeover.
I'd like Annie to answer this for me.
What not to wear?
What not to wear?
No chance for me on that one.
Is correct.
2-2.
That
You
show's
got
a classic.
you got Boomer and Gen X left, Michelle.
I guess Boomer.
All right.
Okay, Boomer.
Want to change the category?
Do you want slang or pop culture or?
I don't know. Which one didn't I do?
I have done music or
Music.
headlines.
Waiting to steal.
We'll do headlines. What U.S. swimmer
you
won
pick.
7 gold medals in 1972 Summer Olympics and set world records in each event? What U.S. swimmer won 7 gold medals in the 1972 Summer Olympics and set world records in each event?
You might remember that Michael Phelps beat all of his records.
7 gold medal. Fit.
Mark Spitz is
Mark
correct.
Hey,
Spitz
good
is
job.
correct.
Very well done, Michelle. I was waiting to steal that away
Oh.
from you.
My
I had
God,
that one
My
in the-
daughter would kill me if I didn't know the swimmer.
Perfect. All right, well, let me try and clear my Boomer, please.
All right.
Go slang.
You want to pick slang?
I want slang. I
What
want Boomer
place
slang.
was called a sixth dimension beyond that which is known to men?
The Twilight Zone?
That is correct.
Yes.
The Twilight Zone.
I knew that from Tower of Terror.
Oh,
Okay, you got Gen X left, Michelle. If you get this one right, you win the game. Good luck.
What category would you like?
I don't know. Music, I guess.
I'm going to ask you this one instead. As a pro baseball player, what was Pete Rose's nickname?
What? Name Hustle. Let's see, Charlie Hustle.
Charlie
Charlie
Hustle.
Hustle's correct, Michelle.
I had a feeling if you listen to a sports station, you'd probably get that one correct.
Great job. 7 correct answers, no incorrect answers today.
Great job, Michelle.
If you get all 4 right, I can't win. It's perfect. So great job.
And did you say it was your son that wants to go to the concert, or who wants to go?
You do, right?
No, my husband.
Oh, okay.
Awesome.
Even better.
All right.
Well, my daughter would have been mad if I would have got the swimmer wrong because she was the swimmer.
Got it.
That's awesome.
Well, great job. Well played, Michelle. A perfect game on your part. Stay right there on the line. Braden will get your information during the break. Aaron, sorry, man. I did the best I could do. I went for 3 for 3. I just never had an opening to break through and win the game today.
Call back again, Aaron.
Absolutely. All right, Michelle, stay right there. We're going to take a timeout. We're going to come back with the final hour of the program. Hit reset on everything, including AJ Preller's press conference earlier. It's Annie and Elsten, your midday hang. San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Stay right there. Back with you for the final hour of today's Monday get-together. It's Annie and Elsten, your midday hang. Rolling through till 2 o'clock on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Annie Heilbrun's here. I'm Craig Elsten. Braden Suprenant here as well in our Odyssey studios overlooking Murphy Canyon. It's this weird post-fall, pre-winter, randomly hot inland winds.
It's going to be in the 80s this week in East County.
Yeah.
So
I always get fall allergies this time of the year.
the allergies are tough this time of year.
Yeah.
And the weather changing and then dropping back down and then going back up.
Yeah.
And
The Santa Anas,
Mhm.
the inland winds, those always get me.
Yeah,
Since I
those-
was a little kid, they always have gotten me.
those are tough, though. I mean, those will get you.
So if you think my voice sounds a little raspy today, that's why. That's absolutely why. We're staying hydrated. I'm going to get through the entire jug today. Normally, I do not get through the entire jug. I'm more woodsy style today. Almost thinking about a refill over here. Here's refill on today's topics of the day. Of course, it's the Dodgers and the Yankees in the World Series. And if you're a big fan of seeing the IRS and FBI square off, or maybe Walmart against Target for all the marbles, here you have it. We've had a very antagonistic chat today, filled with Dodger fans. And, that's fine. You're in the World Series. Congratulations. The Dodgers have made the World Series 4 out of the last 8 years. Given all the structural advantages that any team could possibly hope to enjoy in a major professional sport, LA has, in fact, made the playoffs every year. They never don't make the playoffs.
They don't win the World Series every year, though. They don't
No,
make
they
it
don't.
into the World Series every year.
They don't, but they have made it more, 4 out of 8. That's dynastic. If you had won them, it would have been dynastic. The only one that was won was 2020, of course, 60-game season, a little bit different. But listen, they're 4 wins away from taking that and throwing that out the window, too. The only thing that really kind of gets in my craw, because I get it, Dodger fans like to come to our show to clown, basically, to be trolls, to clown, to go, ha ha, to be like that guy on The Simpsons. Yeah. And, listen, you've got the buzzer right now, so you can hit the buzzer as many times as you want. You're in the World Series. You made it. Congratulations. The one thing that really does stick in my craw, though, and gets it out on the radio. I mean, I didn't talk about all that. It was happening for 3 straight hours. We didn't really talk about it. It was just happening in the chat. The one that gets me is this. The idea, which I have seen from multiple Dodger fans, that because they have star players that have taken deferred money, that somehow they are more virtuous than other players in baseball. And I have literally seen this multiple times from multiple people. Why didn't your players defer their money? Oh, Manny Machado, he's selfish because he's taking all the money up front, not like Will Smith and Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts, who all have deferred money until after they are retired. Oh, that's our players care more about the team, and they deferred because they care more.
Manny Machado backloaded his contract for that reason. He's making the bulk of his money in the end of his contract
He
to
is.
allow for more of the window to be open.
But
Now,
imagine if he only took $1 million a year
right,
and
it's
deferred
different
it
than
all.
deferred, but I don't know that most players are going to defer. First of all, I still can't believe that this was allowed. I mean, it was a loophole that they got through and it was legal, but still it puts the Dodgers at a significant advantage. But second of all, besides Shohei Ohtani and a rare exception here and there, you're not going to see that happen a lot. And for good reason. Players really have no reason to defer. There's the whole virtuosity of it all, I don't think is even a topic. It worked out for a guy named Shohei Ohtani who's going to make $700 million. Let's see if Juan Soto defers his contract, and if he does, I mean, look, it's for these contracts that are so humongous. I mean, maybe it'll become a thing for them for these contracts that are above like $500 million. But there are some exceptions here and there. Like I think Will Smith did a little something, or someone did a little something. Freddie
Mookie
Freeman
Betts has 100 something of his 360 million deferred. Freddie Freeman has like 60 of his 180 something million
deferred till after they're playing.
Till after they're playing, till the 2030s. There are going to be years, Annie, in the early 2030s when the Dodgers will have a payroll of over $130 million of dead money every year. Every year. They'll have 10 straight years of a situation like that.
Yeah.
However, due to the way that Major League Baseball has allowed itself to be built, the LA Dodgers are the only team in Major League Baseball that can do this and suffer no consequence whatsoever. LA's payroll this year, opening day was $277 million. According to Google, it could be counted in a way that would take it up to $320 million this year. $320 million. That's a very important number I want to keep repeating. $320 million. Because every year, for 25 years, the Dodgers get $320 million for their games to be televised in Los Angeles, to less than half of the market. But nonetheless, they get $320 million. So LA can build their entire team without one ticket being sold, without one hot dog being sold, without one parking or concession or T-shirt or hat or anything else, before they bring in one sponsorship, before they bring in one corporate partnership. The Dodgers' payroll is covered. It's covered. Because they have that money coming in, their debt to payroll ratio will never get to the point where the Major League Baseball front office says, hey, hang on, can't do that. So they have carte blanche to do anything they want. And then, to their everlasting benefit, Shohei Ohtani made a decision that he was going to create the most unique contract in the history of sport that would pay him $70 million a year, but 68 of the 70 every year would be pushed till 10 years later. So LA can get away with that. They can get away with this stuff. The Padres would likely not be allowed to sign that contract with Ohtani because there would be a lot of question about that money coming due down the road. But there's 25 years of $320 million a year. It's like winning the best lottery you could win, what the Dodgers have with their Spectrum deal. And yeah, that's what they thought the Dodger baseball content was worth. And the Spectrum losing their ass? Yeah, they're losing their ass on the deal. Of course they are. They've never been able to get it they've never been able to saturate the market with their product. They've never been able to get cable providers in LA to pick up the product because they're charging too much, because of course they're charging too much. They paid $320 million a year for the rights. So listen, this is just the way the game is. And me pointing this out, there's a lot of confusion sometimes between facts and opinion. Me pointing this out, that's a fact. Factually, the Dodgers have a structural advantage that no other team has in Major League Baseball. The Yankees come close, the Mets come close, the Cubs come close. No one else comes close to those four teams. But LA has it by 3-1 over the next best team. By more than that. I mean, the Yes Network deal is $1.5 billion in New York compared to $8 billion for LA. So that structural advantage gives LA the ability to do things. The biggest thing it gives them the ability to do is to make a signing and forget about it. The Dodgers signed a certain right-handed pitcher who toiled in Mexico this year for the biggest contract at that time ever in terms of yearly dollar value for a pitcher. And then after a year, he was gone. Yeah. No big deal. Wash over it. No big deal. Other franchises don't have the ability to paper over maybe a decision that doesn't go the right way. And that's not whining. The Padres have to play in this universe. They understand the sandbox that they're in. They know what's going on. However, it is factual that teams that have that structural advantage are going to make the playoffs almost every year. And there you go, Adam. 4 billion last year. Google said 1.5. My apologies. And those advantages mean the more times you're in the playoffs, the more often that it's going to happen that it clicks one particular year and you make it. These are just it's the lay of the land. It's like arguing when you point out the height of the mountain. Like the mountain is the height it is. Those are just facts.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now, and Will Smith, who's the Dodgers catcher, he's got $50 million of his $140 million 10-year contract that it will be payable from 2034 to 2043. So that raised the deferred compensation to $915.5 million owed to Will Smith, Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez. They're all deferred, getting deferred money extending from 2028 through 2044. I don't think this is something that's, like you just said, I don't think this is something that's realistic for most clubs. This is you've got to also be good for the money. Like you've also got to show that you can put that up and that can be part of your long-term structure. And I'm interested to see in the next CBT if there's any kind of, changes to this. I don't know that there would be, honestly, because at the end of the day, if these players are getting paid and the union it may be fine with it. I don't know, but it isn't something that I don't think, like I said, I don't think it's realistic for most teams and most players.
Meanwhile, AJ Preller spoke to the press today. We carried the entire press conference live at 11, so you can either track back later on our YouTube feed and find the entire press conference there, or you can go to our 11 a.m. podcast.
It's already posted.
Already posted. You can hear the whole thing.
Yes.
If you've heard an AJ Preller press conference before, then you heard this one too. There was, he's a very careful man. And one of the things he's very careful to do is to not make news. Like to get through one of these and not have made any news. And he'll be able to say tonight very successfully that he did that today.
Yeah, the Padres kind of operate under the Bill Belichick kind of mentality of, just less leaving the organization, less news being made, or less, how would you call it? Less, maybe the way they consider is like secrets or something, like less information that goes public is better. But so with them, it's kind of like, you wait to find out. I mean, we'll see, if Ruben Niebles gets another contract. We'll see if Mike Schultz gets an extension, which I don't necessarily think has to happen this year if they've got an understanding of what might happen in the future. But that's going to be a big deal about Niebla either way, what happens to him. And then they talked a little bit about, AJ Preller talked a little bit about the finances and how this is going to be discussions and conversations that they're going to have over the next few weeks and into the offseason over how much they're going to spend and whether or not they're going to override that luxury tax this year. And then other than that, you kind of have to wait and see, who's on the market, who do they trade, who do they make available, who do they sign back? These are all big questions. I think that whoever is available for you in the farm system, or like a Johnny Brito, Randy Vasquez, Matt Waldron, I think they're all on the table for being maybe bigger parts of what could be happening next year. But I think also is on the table is them going out there and getting a few key pieces that they believe will be the most impactful for their club.
Yeah, Preller said he's open, and that management, more importantly, that management is open to various budgets based on various opportunities. So theoretically, if the right player, the right opportunity came down the road that the Padres thought would be advantageous, they would be willing to spend and go over the number.
I think they'd be willing to discuss it. I don't know if do you take that as they'd be willing to?
Well, I mean, that if you're open.
Okay, yeah, you're open to signing. Okay,
right?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Taking him at his word. If they're open, then the right person would be acceptable.
Yes.
However, what does that mean? They didn't say what that means. Does that mean Blake Snell taking an 80% discount? Because in that case, it's meaningless. In that case, it means they're not open. If they really are open, that means they're willing to spend market value on a free agent if they believe it's the right fit to make their club win a championship. And that's the biggest thing, which I know is like you kind of have to say it, but you really don't. There are other general managers who don't not pound the table, but AJ, made the point very adamantly. Our team is trying to win. Like, our team is trying to win. We're trying to win now. We're trying to win in 3 years. We're trying to win in 5 years. We're not rebuilding. We're not transitioning. We're not reloading. We're not any of those re's at all. They're trying to win in 2025. So they've got a lot of challenges, Annie. Financially, they got a lot of challenges. There's a lot of guys that are going to get paid more to be the exact same player, but a year older this year. That's just a fact of the road. Just like a fact of the road is that the Padres will get a few $1 million from their television situation this year. They won't get 320. They'll get a few. They'll get some, but it won't be that, and it won't be close to that. And those are the realities that they understand and are willing to live by. Yeah. And until the next collective bargaining agreement, which is a couple of years away, this is the way this is the shape of things.
And I think, look, I think are there things that AJ Preller knows, but he's just not saying yes, absolutely, and that's fine. That's totally, a strategic move that they make or that he makes, which is understandable on his end. Sometimes, or when they're trying to get things done. But I think also, on the other hand, I think that he doesn't know yet, right? I mean, who knows if they've put out offers and they're waiting to hear back? Who knows if they're discussing numbers and just things haven't been buttoned up yet? And so I think that, and you don't know even with what the market is going to hold in terms of once the World Series is over and he goes to the GM meetings, like what's going to be available? What are the realistic deals? What are the realistic offers? So I think that there is something to that as well. Like I believe him on some of that he just really doesn't quite know yet. He's got an idea, but he doesn't know for sure.
Yeah, and as Annie mentioned, when he was asked about Mike Schilt, the one thing that I really was encouraged by is that he immediately pivoted in his answer to say the whole coaching staff.
Yeah.
It was like, well, what do you think about Schilt in an extension? And he said the whole coaching staff. So I do really believe that Niebla is a priority, unless, which was a follow-up question, unless there's a big league managerial job waiting for him out there. Padres won't stand in the way of that. They can't stand in the way of that. But otherwise, it sounds like, the goal is to re-up the whole coaching staff. If you do that, you're absolutely going to give Schilt a minimum of another year, because I do think it's something they have to do before spring training. They'll talk about it. They don't have to do it today. But I think it's something they do have to do before spring training, or else Schilt, winds up being a dangling Chad for the team if they get off to a rough start for any reason next year.
It's a good coaching staff. It's a cohesive coaching staff. It's a coaching staff that they value consistency within the organization in terms of being able to build on, like he talked about earlier, like AJ Preller did, build on what happened this year, right? Like that's your hope. The Padres have made the playoffs 3 of the last 5 years, including 2020, which was a 60-game season, but they have not made it multiple years in a row. It's been a year in the playoffs, a year out, a year in the playoffs, a year out. So this would be a change this year if they're able to get back to the playoffs for the second consecutive year.
All right, let's take a time out. Kind of a reset of some of the things we've been talking about, but there's so many stories we haven't gotten to. And the one I want to get to next is one of the greatest post-game sound bites I've ever heard in my life. I'm not even kidding. Have you ever heard a coach after a championship game, get up on the podium and say, yeah, they didn't deserve it. They didn't deserve it. We deserved it. They didn't deserve it. They stole that from us. Well, you're going to hear that next. You're going to hear those words next and more. It's some incredible shade thrown as well when we come back. Annie and Elsten, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Did you know you can listen to 97.3 The Fan with your smart speaker? Well, now you do. Ask your device to play 97.3 The Fan. Give it a shot. Say, hey, Alexa. I'm not going to continue the rest because phones might start. Everything could start.
And then like dogs and babies might get woken up because.
Oh, Alexa, set an alarm for 4 a.m.
Oh!
How dare you?
Alexa, set an alarm for 4 a.m.
How dare you? That just worked in someone's house, right?
I know. That's going to be brutal for that person.
Yes.
There's your prank for the day.
And
Set
they're going
an
to
alarm
like
for
yell at their
4 a.m.
spouse or something, and they're going to be like, and their spouse is going to be like, what are you talking about?
Set an alarm for 4 a.m.
That was Braden Soprenet, host of America's Finest Football
That's
Show.
Right.
You
Direct
should be setting
all
an alarm.
comments his way.
You should be setting an alarm for 10 p.m.
There you
to
go.
tune into the show.
Oh, there it is.
Set an alarm to 4 a.m. to nuclear alarm.
All right, let's get
It's a
to
great
this.
prank.
The WNBA finals took place last night. I know that's probably off a lot of people's radar, although this was the most heralded, highly rated, anticipated, viewed, engaged with WNBA season in history because Caitlin Clark is the spearhead of a generation of stars. And I think the best thing that's happened this year, Annie, with the WNBA is that they've been able to lift above just being Caitlin Clark and the WNBA. And series like this help. You know, New York Liberty, Minnesota Lynx, neither team with Caitlin. They go the distance. They go all 5 games. Game 5 goes into overtime. And in the end, the Liberty win 67-62, winning their first franchise championship, ending 28 years without, denying Minnesota a shot at a 5th straight, not straight, but a 5th championship in franchise history.
What do you think of? I did see the 40 million thing that they lost 40 million, right? The WNBA.
Okay.
What is your take on that? I mean, is that just overspending to kind of try to keep up with like the media
context.
coverage?
How much did they lose the year before?
They lost 50 million the year before.
So it's getting better.
So it's getting better.
Slightly.
Okay.
I mean, that any number out of context means whatever you want to make it. But the fact that the WNBA has a better broadcast deal than they've ever had, more exposure than they've ever had, higher ratings than they've ever had, stands to follow that the league is going in the right direction, whether they lost money this year or not. Many small leagues lose money, and the NBA has covered the WNBA for 28 years.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that, okay? Because they believe in the product. They want this to succeed, and they want it to continue. And clearly, that investment has worked. You've got a generation of new players. You've got generations of new players lifting up the sport and bringing more eyeballs to it. And you know what? Controversy sells too. And that's what we got in last night's game. Now, there's no question that basketball is a sport difficult to officiate, and generally in history, it favors the home team, right? You got a big crowd behind you. The odds of a blocking foul being called or a charging foul being called or maybe a travel being missed, all of those inherently support the home team. And 3 different times in the series between the Lynx and Liberty, New York shot double the free throws to Minnesota. Now, Minnesota's got a post presence. They don't just, jack up threes the whole time. It's not as if they are avoiding foulable plays. Because some teams are like that. Some teams just jack up threes and then cry about the foul calls, but the other team's going inside and drawing fouls. That's not the case here. But critically, in the final minute of the game, Nafisa Collier, the star of Minnesota Lynx, drove to the net and could have been fouled. And it was a no harm, no foul, play on situation. And then in the closing seconds of regulation, down by 2, New York fed their superstar center, Breanna Stewart, who stutter-stepped, and I will tell you, she traveled, and then took 2 steps into the paint, rose up, and shot. And the officials whistled a foul.
Yeah.
And LeBron James thinks it wasn't a foul. Steph Curry thinks it wasn't a foul. Most of the NBA stars came out and said this was a bad call. The officials reviewed it. They don't have, like some leagues, where you go to New York for the call or you go to to skip C for the call or whatever. They don't have a remote office. It's just the same official who made the call reviewing the call. So that does lead to some implicit bias. Nonetheless, Breanna Stewart was given that whistle. Minnesota challenged. The challenge didn't go. Stewart made both free throws. The game went to overtime. And in overtime, and I watched the overtime, my buddy John sent me a text that, hey, this game's in overtime. You better get to it. I'm like, whoa. And I watched it. Minnesota didn't do anything in overtime. They scored 2 points in 5 minutes. Scored 2 points. I mean, New York only scored 7. It wasn't exactly a brilliant offensive display.
Right.
As is often the case in an overtime, in a championship situation, everyone is both tight and also defending their lives out. Right? So, point being, Liberty wins 67-62. The Streamers fall at Barclays Center in Brooklyn. The WNBA commissioner wearing a dress that had the big buildings in New York represented on it, the skyscrapers, seemed like a little implicit bias. But as all of that was happening, the Lynx did their post-game press conference where their head coach, who is also their president of operations, Cheryl Reeve, she went off. She went off. And take a listen.
And I know all the headlines will be Reeve cries foul. Bring it on, right? Bring it on. Because the was stolen from us. Bring it on. And this shit ain't that hard. Officiating it's not that hard. When someone is being held, be consistent. If you don't want to hold it one end, then don't call it the other. Be consistent. Every team asks for that. Right? Sandy asked for that last game. So 3 of the games in the series, we're talking about the same damn thing. Right? So I tell these guys, for whatever reason it didn't work out. Right? It just doesn't feel right. I mean, congratulations to the Liberty on their first championship. Been around, I don't know, how long has the league been around? 28 years? It took them 28 years. Congrats to them. We were that close to our 5th. Just didn't happen. Right? It's disappointing. It's incredibly disappointing.
Hey, Sandy.
Now, this is the other coach.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Cheryl came in earlier and said that she felt this championship had been stolen from them because of the officiating. I'm just wondering if you had any thoughts on the reffing today.
I thought they were pretty fair. I mean, I'm after.
There you go.
I mean, right. I mean, the heat of the moment, the emotions from the first coach. I mean, I get that. But
I kind of enjoyed the official response from Liberty being,
right. I think they were pretty fair. I mean, it's a little good drama there, a little good, definitely made for good sound and entertaining, right?
I don't, Cheryl Reeve has to be feeling a lot of regret this morning for what she said. And it's not that she's necessarily wrong.
Right, it's not. And I mean, again, in the heat of the moment after it all ends, like, you are pissed. So you're like, you were so close to winning and it didn't work out for you, and that's an emotional letdown.
You're mad because it matters. You're mad because you care. Nonetheless,
it's never a good look on that. It's never a good look to blame the don't let it come down to officiating is kind of where you want it to be.
That's exactly right. Secondarily, what did it take him? 28 years?
Yeah, that was...
Congrats.
That was ridiculous. Yeah.
It's
You don't need to say that. I mean, that's not a good look.
However, I'm here for it. It made the show. It wasn't going to make the show if she said congratulations to New York.
Right. Played a good game.
Yeah,
tipped the
job
cap.
well done.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. Maybe she needed to swing into this a little earlier in the series. If she wanted to change things up, maybe she needed to, accuse somebody of a sinister sling. Breanna Stewart chucked a basketball at her sideline. It's extremely disrespectful. A little surprised. Sorry, I'm still not over that. I'll never be over it. We lost. I'll never be over it. Till we win a championship.
But I don't think the Padres lost because of that. It was ridiculous, and the whole thing with Dave Roberts, it's like, I still look back at that and I'm like, why would you take a player from another team and throw that player under the bus? And then be like, oh, Manny and I are good. He'd play for me any day. I mean, the whole thing is kind of silly, but at the same time, drama and noise and all of that, it needs to be handled when you're in those high stress situations. I did see I was looking at some stuff last night that I forget how I stumbled into it, but there were some national people who were diving into that world, and a lot of people who thought that Tatis and Profar were disrespectful, and that's what you get for taunting the fans. And I just think I can understand, if I take a step back, I can understand how you might be someone on the outside going, what are they doing? But I don't. I mean, if you cover this team all year long, and then you also see how the fans were toward those guys, I think that is such the wrong approach to look at that and be like, oh, these guys were taunting us, and so, they get what they deserve and stuff. Like, they were playing their normal game that they play every single day, all year long. This is how they play the game. Like, and so I thought that was like kind of amateur hour for some of the national people
100%.
to play into that.
No, I mean, listen, Ken Rosenthal's reputation got tarnished. I don't know about irreparably, but in my mind, that repair will not take place.
Yeah, it's a weird look. It's a weird look that I get needing to motivate your team, but to throw something on an opposing player that used to play for you, that's kind of like, what are you doing, dude? What's going on here?
Yeah, I mean,
weird.
And it's that same thing. Mind your place. Shut up and play ball. Like, those type of comments only go to one kind of athlete. I'm here to tell you that right now. They only go in one direction, and there's a code to every single one of those types of statements. Dancing peacock, kid who pulled the fire alarm. Like, these are coded comments that are intended to say your behavior is not okay, even though a certain different demographic maybe does the exact same thing, and they are praised for being fiery and competitive and for being joyful and playful and all these other adjectives that you want to throw out there.
It's the whole policing of how people play the game. If you don't want them to dance in your end zone, don't let them score. I mean, stop policing guys playing the game their way. That's just silly. Now, if Jerks and Profar, which, by the way, would have been right in his jurisdiction, if he threw something back at the fans, you know what I mean? Because if they're throwing at you, hey, guess what? If you want to throw something back, but he wouldn't do that. In fact, he ran over to the guy and gave him a baseball, who then, so it's like, I don't know. It's like they didn't warrant. It's not like they went into the stands and started punching people or something, okay, fine. Like, maybe we can get into that discussion. But when you're just playing the game your way, it's a judgmental take to be like, you shouldn't play the game that way. Shouldn't be that happy. Shouldn't be that joyous. Like, what
it was a whitewashing of the atrocious behavior of Los Angeles Dodgers fans at Dodger Stadium, who did the one thing in the entire range of things that happened that you can't do, which is throw trash on the field, throw a partially filled beer can at the right fielder, throw dangerous objects at relievers in the bullpen, throw stuff all over the warning track. All of that was done by them, by their fans. Now, Jurickson Profar and Fernando Tatis Jr. reacted to having stuff thrown at them by laughing and dancing. God forbid that someone laughs and dances while people are throwing trash on the field. This was a deliberate attempt to take the onus off of a misbehaving fan base, creating a very, very bad and very earned reputation for being a bad and sometimes dangerous fan base, turning that around and pinning it on a guy from Curacao, a guy from the DR, another guy from the DR, saying it's their behavior that's the one that needs to be called out. It's their behavior that needs to be policed and checked. It has nothing to do with the point that you're throwing junk at Major League Baseball players on the field.
Yeah, it's just silly. I mean, at the end of the day, like, go out and win the games. And, like, that's what you need to do. That's how you need to play. Like, and you know what? The Padres didn't lose or didn't win because of that. The Padres lost because they went cold at a bad time against a team that got hot, and their pitching staff was able to be managed and work through some of their vulnerabilities early on, and they did just enough to go ahead and score and win those games. I look again. I look at all the drama that happened with Manny. The Padres went out and won the game the next day. It's not like all of this affected them, okay, where it's like, oh, they just lied down, they couldn't do this. Like the players would like scoff at you for saying that. Like they don't want you to make that excuse for them, So they went out, they won the game, and then yes, they lost the next two with an off day in between. But I just don't. It's the drama was the drama that was separate than them winning or losing. Now, whatever that did for the Dodgers, okay. But to me, again, like I said, I think the Dodgers were more embarrassed at Dave Roberts pinning this on Manny and having that post-game press conference that off-day press conference where he was like, all upset about this. Like, I think players were embarrassed about that. I don't think that this was, Dave Roberts is some genius. I just don't. But we could feel differently about that.
No, I mean, I don't think it's genius. I told you what I thought it was. I thought it was kayfabe. I thought it was the most classic thing that anyone who's ever watched wrestling knows. That sometimes you make up a story. Sometimes you make up a story to change the emotions around an event, and sometimes you create fake emotion. That's kayfabe. Go look it up. Kayfabe. I'm listening to the audience, not to Annie. Like, go look it up. Fake emotion. Fake emotion. It came out of wrestling. It came out of wrestling dramas. Babyface, heel. Who's the bad guy? Who's the good guy? Oh, the babyface turns, becomes a heel. All of this stuff. And then guess what they do? They go out and have a beer after the game. After they wrestle one another, they're friends because they're actually coworkers that have been put through a script. That's what this was. This was a script. It came from management. Their own employee asked the question at the press conference. It was completely designed. And they did that to create a distraction, and it worked. I mean, in that level, it worked. It took the pressure off of L.A., it put it squarely on San Diego, and with the help of a willing, cunning, complicit media accomplice in Ken Rosenthal, the very next morning, instead of saying how embarrassing Dodger fans are and what a bleep hole Dodger Stadium is and how unfitting it is of a fan base to throw trash at their division rivals' outfielders, it became, well, what about the behavior of Profar? What about the behavior of Tatis? This is the classic playbook that we see in politics turned into sports, and it's a complete joke.
It is interesting to me. It will continue to be interesting that Ken Rosenthal put that column out before the video was even out. I mean, before there was any kind of and then it wasn't changed afterwards, So, like, I do think, like, that was a big deal. Because we know it was a big deal because Ken Rosenthal wasn't allowed back into the Padres dugout, which I completely understand in terms of just how you were going to handle that relationship during a very emotional and kind of stressful time, intense time for both teams. So I get that, and their understanding of that situation. But yeah, I mean, this is like, look, debatable for sure, but I just think if I'm a player in the clubhouse and if I'm talking to Xander Bogaerts and I'm like, Xander, did you guys lose the game because of the drama off the field? Like, he would laugh in my face, and like, of course he would. Because the right thing to do here is to take responsibility. It's not for whatever actions that happen on the field in terms of you winning or losing the game. The drama around it, who's to say that there's not drama next year or the year after that or the year after that? You can't control it all as much as organizations would like to think that they can silence things and they can make things go a certain direction. You can't, so it's more about how you're going to, hold yourselves within an organization as a team with the play on the field. And I look at the Padres and I look at especially what some of the mentality around Jurickson Profar and him jumping after he caught the Mookie Betts home run ball. And again, like, to me, that was playful. And the Dodgers fans laughed and smiled at him. And it wasn't until they lost the game that it was, oh no, he was taunting us, then it became something bad. But in that moment, those Dodger fans were having just as much. I mean, of course, they want to see Mookie Betts hit a home run, but that was early on in the game. They were having just as much fun with Jurickson as he was having with them.
Let's take our last time out of the show. When we come back, we got a few minutes to take your calls on Ask Us Anything. Lines are open now, 833-288-0973. Give us a ring during the commercial break. We'll put you up when we come back. All we ask is that you have a question preloaded to ask the show. 833-288-0973. Ask Us Anything wraps up Annie and Elsten after this timeout on The Fan.